Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Tell the world I see with an emoji and stop the bullies.
Know someone who's being bullied online? Send the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more about the witness emoji at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth?
You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel?
Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman. You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee both make controversial comments about Caitlin Clark in women's basketball. Tracy McGrady says Steph Curry is not a top 10 player ever, and Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson both get big contracts for their teams, and much, much more on a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. Doc Rivers is going to have Damian Lillard run very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the players $300 million. You better be sure that that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Did you see Lamar Jackson cry to the ref? No, he didn't. We are back for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Daryl Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can call us at 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, what's up, man?
Scary thought today. My grandmother unfortunately had to be rushed to the hospital today. She collapsed. She had some chest pain, some kidney, and had to be rushed on a stretcher out of the hospital this morning. So it was 5 people had to come into their house and take her away. So hopefully she's
Is she okay?
well.
Did you reach out to her?
I have not heard from my uncle since then. My uncle's with her now. He was worried at the time that it could be a stroke. My mom doesn't think so because she was able to talk, but it's definitely it's something that I did not expect. 6 a.m. till I was asleep. My uncle came up to rush to tell me that she needed help out of the house, to get everything out of the way. Hopefully she's okay. She's at Stony Brook now.
Yeah, she's at Stony Brook. She'll be fine. Obviously, if you haven't, no news is good news. That's what everybody says. So hopefully she's okay. Give a shout out to Speedy's grandmother, and hopefully everything is okay. And obviously your uncle's there, so she's in good hands, and she's got great doctors over there. I've been to Stony Brook quite a few times. I know a bunch of the doctors over there, so she's in great hands. But my heart goes out to you and your family. We have a great show lined up for you, but what is going on with this weather, man? I have no idea. It is so humid out, and now I'm hearing that we could have thunderstorms all the way through to Saturday. It's crazy. I don't understand. And by the way, what is going on with people on the damn roads? Everybody, there's more traffic now because it's warm and it's hot. And don't give me that people are off of work because they're staying home because of the great weather. People have to go to work. They got to pay their bills. So I cannot see people going out and just saying, you know what, I'm not going to work today. I'm just going to hang out on the road, go to the mall and hang out at the beach. So unless they have a break or they're having a good time with their husbands, girlfriends, or whatever the hell they're doing, I doubt they're at the beach. Just my opinion. At 8 o'clock, we'll be talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. He has been on our show before. He is fantastic. I definitely want to get into the Donovan Mitchell situation and the Garland situation because both those guys, it seems to not like each other. Or maybe Darius Garland's trying to run his way out of Cleveland. So I have no idea what's going on with Cleveland. At 9 o'clock, we will be talking to Forever Blueshirts executive editor Jim Cerny. He will be joining us. Did we ever have Jim on the show?
No, we have not. He's also of many different other things. Sportsnaut. He used to work for NHL.com and The Athletic. He's a well-known national guy. He's
a Ranger guy.
In addition to being a Ranger guy, but shout out to our friend Mr. Scultore. I asked him if he wanted to come on. He was on vacation, but he recommended Jim Noah.
He doesn't want to come on because he doesn't want to deal with me. That's what it is. He wants to stay the hell away from me because every time he comes on the show and it has anything to do with the Rangers, that's what's going to happen.
Spank it.
There you go. We're going to spank it. Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee both make controversial comments about Caitlin Clark and women's basketball. So that's the first topic we're going to get into. Tracy McGrady says that Steph Curry is not a top 10 player of all time. I agree with him, and I'm sure he has his reasons, and I have mine. Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson both get huge contracts with their respectable teams, the 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll get into that. CJ Stroud says that he would take Eli Manning's career over Aaron Rodgers. You're barking up the wrong tree, buddy. Just my opinion. MLB says that the investigations into Shohei Ohtani's interpreter is closed. Oh, what a coinky dink. Automatically, it's closed now. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's very fitting that the MLB don't want to talk about it anymore because it had something to do with their best player or one of their best players. MLB also suspends 2 other players for gambling charges, one for 1 year and the other was banned for life. So the MLB seems to ban people and suspend people, but Shohei Ohtani, he's clear for baseball. What a story. But I want to get into Caitlin Clark because this seems to be the talk of the town right now. Here in New York with Stephen A. Smith, some of the interesting comments he made on his show on First Take, and then the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee said some interesting things about Caitlin Clark and the WNBA and why Caitlin Clark is really everything to the WNBA right now. But Caitlin Clark, since entering the WNBA, has been a victim of many cheap shots and hard fouls. The most recent came from Chicago Sky's guard, Chennedy Carter, a teammate of Angel Reese, who had rivalries with Clark in college when Caitlin was in Iowa and Angel was in LSU. Carter says she had no regrets of what she did to Clark. Angel Reese also mentioned that people are not watching the WNBA and women's basketball because of one person. Stephen A. Smith said that nobody talks WNBA like ESPN. And the reporter Monica McNutt, well, that's a great last name, by the way, McNutt, I'm just mentioning it, said that he could have been talking about it at least for the last 3 years. Taking shots at Stephen A. Smith. Pat McAfee also bashed the WNBA rookie class and said it was being saved by Clark, but apologizes when he used the term white bitch. Through their first 10 WNBA career games, Clark is only one of 2 players, along with Sabrina Ionescu, with 150 points, 50 rebounds, and 50 assists. Very interesting. And I want to say something about, we will get into the Stephen A. Smith thing because that seems to, it really grew legs for the last 24 to 48 hours. But we're not going to get into that first. I want to get into this hatred for Caitlin Clark. And it doesn't make any sense to me. Caitlin Clark, this past year, being drafted, doing what she did in March Madness in that tournament, going to the national championship and losing in the national championship. Nevertheless, really has been so important for the WNBA's growth. For now, you're going to see new TV deals, which brings in more money, more revenue, which will help who? The players. That's one. Number two, sneaker deals. After getting that big sneaker deal, she has it now. After Caitlin Clark landing that big sneaker deal, people like Chennedy Carter and Angel Reese could be looking at sneaker deals in the near future. Here's another thing. Young girls who are trying to sway away from women's basketball because they make no money and they don't want to travel to Spain or Portugal or wherever they're, Ukraine, to go play basketball, or China, because they don't want to travel away from their families and want to obviously have kids and grow families. They don't want to go over there. But now, if the WNBA takes off, players could make a natural salary, a chance to make a living in the WNBA. And that has a lot to do with Caitlin Clark. Say whatever you want to say about Caitlin Clark, that she's only a three-point shooter. That's all she does. That's ridiculous. Because like we just said, Sabrina Ionescu is the only player right now in the WNBA in the starting of her career that has averaged, who's averaged 150 points, 50 rebounds, and 50 assists in a short time. Now, you sit here today and you wonder why people are picking on a girl like Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark, she's a fantastic talent. There's no question that she is. She's a great three-point shooter. Some people can compare her skills to Steph Curry. Now, let's get into Steph Curry. Does anybody believe that Steph Curry's only a three-point shooter? I'm raising my hand. But guess what? A lot of people believe that Steph Curry could be a top 10 player in NBA history. Tracy McGrady doesn't, but a lot of people do. Now, I look at Steph Curry, his game reminds me, well, first of all, Caitlin Clark's game reminds me of Steph Curry. But Steph Curry is not just a three-point shooter. He's one of the best stealers in the NBA right now. Averages almost 2.5 a game. He rebounds, for a guy his size, averages about 5 to 6 rebounds a game. And assists, average about 6 or 7. When you look at those numbers, and then you look at Caitlin Clark, right now averaging 16 points. 16 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, and 6 assists, 1.3 steals a game, and 1 block. You could say that Caitlin Clark is an all-around good player. Now, I don't know what's going on with Chennedy Carter. I don't know what's going on with Angel Reese. Maybe, obviously, Angel Reese doesn't like her because they played against one another. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they're just completely jealous of her.
Maybe Angel Reese told Chennedy to do it.
Who knows? Caitlin Clark deserves a lot of credit for the growth of the WNBA. As a matter of fact, every single game she's played at this season, she has sold out. Yes, I'm not going to say Indiana. Caitlin Clark has sold out those stadiums. Now, if you're a team owner right now, if you own a team in the WNBA, wouldn't you like to see something like that? Wouldn't you like to see a packed stadium? Not only to go and see Caitlin Clark, but go see your team. And if you beat Caitlin Clark, and by the way, Indiana is not a good team. So they're not watching Indiana win those games. You're probably watching Indiana lose those games. The whole point here is she is driving new fans to come to the stadium. She is driving new fans to watch it on TV. She's driving new fans to love the game, which will bring endorsements, jersey sales, and TV deals. Why is the hate for one player? Now, is it just Caitlin Clark? Well, if you look at the numbers right now, the WNBA is up a significant amount right now. TV, when it comes to the TV deal that they have right now over there at ESPN, I think they're on ESPN. Or if you look at what they do when it comes to ticket sales, because if you look, I'm actually a Liberty fan. I've gone to a couple Liberty games live at Madison Square Garden. I've also seen the Liberty play at the Barclays Center. Okay. I will say this. I have seen games where there's not even half the stadium filled. They don't sell out those games. It's not the New York Knicks where it doesn't matter how bad they are, they're going to sell out those games. Corporate America don't care about the WNBA. But the fact that Caitlin Clark is driving these endorsements, these pizza deals. I mean, she's been on pizza commercials. She's been on Subway commercials, State Farm commercials. It's going to open the door up for all these WNBA players. That the WNBA is not a joke anymore. It's starting to grow legs. It's starting to be put on top of those professional men's sports. And women deserve some credit. I believe there'll be a woman coach in the NBA. Eventually, an NBA team's going to give a woman a chance to coach an NBA team. We were all remember in the 90s, and I said this before, Marcelle Riom, she was a goaltender. She was drafted in the NHL. The Tampa Bay Lightning drafted her. She was the first professional woman hockey player playing in the NHL. She didn't last that long. And I don't know if the NHL will ever give another girl a chance. I think they will eventually.
Yeah, maybe not anytime soon, but maybe in 10 years.
They're athletic and they're talented. If you watch them at the All-Star game 2 years ago in the skills competition, they were out skating some of the men, okay? And if a woman could do that, how are you going to catch them? So I think it could happen. It opens up the floodgates. Now, I don't think you're going to see a professional women's football player. No. Not because they're just massively big men. And I don't think they can handle the size of these men. But is it crazy to think that there could eventually be a woman playing in the NBA? Is it crazy to think that you would see a woman play in the NHL again? No. How about baseball? Sure. How about a woman's baseball player, a pitcher? You think that could happen? I do. These softball women, they could throw softballs going like what? I don't know what the number is. I think it's like
it's in the 60s.
60,
like
69 mile per hour. And these balls are pretty big. Imagine them throwing a baseball overhand, not underhand. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this is great for women's sports. It is. Now, let's get to the Stephen A. Smith situation.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith, over the last couple of years, has not really driven women's basketball. Okay? Those are the facts. Stephen A. Smith is an NBA guy. He's written for the 76ers years and years ago. That's how he built his name. Eventually, he got a chance to work on ESPN, First Take with Skip Bayless, and he had his own radio show. He's grown from years ago. And one of the main reasons is because he's a basketball guy. His knowledge in basketball is impeccable. The guy knows basketball. But on the Stephen A. Smith First Take show, and I say Stephen A. Smith because it is his show, he said nobody talks WNBA like ESPN. And Monica McNutt, which ESPN actually offset, said some interesting things. Actually, it was on YouTube. There was a clip on YouTube that they got rid of. ESPN did not want anybody to see that because it was embarrassing in a lot of people's eyes on the First Take show because she called out Stephen A. Smith. And she said this could have been talked about for the last 3 years, but it hasn't been. And if you look at Stephen A. Smith's face right here, when she said that, and you look at her face, and then you look at Shannon Sharp. I mean, honestly, right? It's Shannon Sharp. I'm sorry. To me, you can understand why Stephen A. Smith was not very happy about it because Monica called him out on his own show. And Stephen A. Smith said some interesting things today. He said that the game in the WNBA has grown and that he respects all women athletes. He also said that he creates his own content. He is the content creator on his show. He's the one who brings in, obviously, guests like Monica McNutt. He's the one that brought in Shannon Sharp. He's the one that's brought in Chris Russo. It's his content. He drives the content. So he said, I don't know why I'm getting attacked by everybody on social media because I do care about the WNBA. Do I think the WNBA is growing? Do I think Caitlin Clark has a lot to do with it? Absolutely. And I know he's getting attacked all over social media. Mm-hmm. He is. But this is who Stephen A. Smith is. He's controversial. That's how he built his name. That's how a lot of these radio show hosts, why a lot of these broadcasters, how they build their name. Mike Francesa, he was known to attack the fans. They would call the show, and if he didn't like what they had to say, he would call them idiots and hang up the phone on them. And people hated him. There are so many people that couldn't stand Mike Francesa on Mike and the Mad Dog, and why everybody loves Chris Russo, because Chris Russo was just a loud, rambunctious, crazy old man. But you see, you have to create controversial takes. That's sports radio. That is the media. That's what drives people to listen. I don't blame Stephen A. Smith on his attack back. Well, he didn't even attack back. He's just protecting himself and his brand. He wasn't wrong for that. And I am one of those guys that are not a big fan of Stephen A. Smith. Everybody that knows me on this show knows that I am not going to stick up for Stephen A. Smith. As a matter of fact, a lot of his takes, I have my own thoughts to it. And I disagree on a lot of things that Stephen A. Smith says. But this, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Now, does he talk about the WNBA all the time? Does he speak about it? No, he doesn't. And now the WNBA is becoming something to talk about. Why? Because of Caitlin Clark. And these women are hating on her.
And giving cheap shots, too, is definitely not the right way to do it. And Chennedy Carter is actually somebody that's had a past reputation of that. I'm not saying she's like a Draymond Green level, but she was cut from her first team, I think in Atlanta, for issues with the locker room. She was cut from the LA Sparks the year after that and had some kind of technical fouls issues with that year. So she's had that kind of reputation in the past. And Caitlin Clark's, this is not the first time that's happened, too. It's also not the first time that she's been slandered wrongfully, too. Like you're talking about Pat McAfee saying what he said. There was also two reporters that were being creepy on her a couple months ago when she first got drafted by the Indiana Fever. And Stephen A. Smith, I mean, yeah, he's not wrong in the fact that Caitlin Clark is going to elevate the product, to say. Now, would he have said it like that? Maybe a little too much to say, all right, nobody talked about it before, that kind of thing, too. Maybe that was a little insulting. And Monica McNutt, I think, has every right to say what she said as a former player. And she's a very good basketball analyst, too. She actually does the Knicks post games. She does a lot of the men's college.
Do you agree with her?
Yeah, I do, because it's too extreme. And I think you bring up Shannon Sharp, too. Shannon Sharp, the reason he had to leave Skip Bayless was because everything he said with DeMar Hamlin, too. Like, he was taking it a little too far where it sort of became inhumane. Now, he's not wrong where Caitlin Clark's, the proper popularity of her is going to develop the game. And neither is Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's not wrong about saying that players. Now, he shouldn't have said white, whatever he said, and then taking shots at everybody else in the rookie class that have done very well, too. But Caitlin Clark is the popular one that's going to elevate it. But nevertheless, I think there are better ways they could have said it that sound less inhumane.
I disagree, because Stephen A. Smith is going to go out there. He's going to speak his piece. And again, does he talk about the WNBA all the time? No, he doesn't do that. But when he does speak about the WNBA, he gives them a platform. He gives these women platforms. Why is Monica McNutt on his show, First Take? Why is she on that show? Because of him. He's the one who reached out to Monica. He's the one who told Monica, I want to get you on the show. And this isn't the first time Monica's been on that show. She's been on the show every single week. She's on that show.
She's been consistently a women's basketball analyst.
But that's what I'm saying. So to say that Stephen A. Smith is not giving women's basketball a platform, that's a lie. That's a lie. Now, should have he been doing this for years? Yeah, listen, 2-3 years ago, the WNBA really wasn't a big story. It really wasn't. But Caitlin Clark and some of these guys, I mean, Sabrina Ionescu, what she did over there at the All-Star game, shooting the three-pointers and facing off against Steph Curry, scoring and shooting, 24 three-pointers and 24 points for those three-point contests and keeping up with Steph Curry. That was amazing. That really puts women's basketball right there with men's basketball. Are they ever going to compete against the NBA? No, they're not. But if these women finally get the contracts that they deserve, I mean, some of these women, they play in the WNBA for 4 or 5 months, and then they leave and they go overseas for the other 5-6 months. And we all know what happened to Brittany Griner. Right. She did that. She played in the WNBA, and then after the season was over, she traveled over there to Russia. And what did she do? She was smoking weed. She got caught, and she got thrown into jail. Right. So if the WNBA was making money and the WNBA was paying their own players, don't you think they wouldn't go overseas? Don't you think that girls like, I don't know, Chennedy Carter, after the season, doesn't go overseas and play in Portugal or Maine, or not Maine, Portugal or Spain or one of those countries? So I think that this is good for women's basketball. It is great for women's basketball. And to me, again, I go to Steph Curry, and I speak about Steph Curry all the time. I am not a big Steph Curry fan. Anybody that listens to the show, I take shots at him, but nobody takes away his greatness. Does anybody believe that Steph Curry isn't the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history? Even I can't argue that anymore. I can't. He is the greatest three-point shooter to ever play in the NBA. The problem here is that nobody is attacking Steph Curry on what he is strong at. Nobody's doing that because he's Steph Curry, right? Because he's made a name for himself. He's won championships. He's the face of the Golden State Warriors. He's one of the top 3 faces right now for the NBA. Why can't Caitlin Clark do that for the WNBA? Why? Do you think players in the NBA are hating on Steph Curry because all he does is chuck up three-pointers, half-court three-pointers? No. Because he's helping the game. He's helping the TV deals. He's helping them get big-time contracts.
And that's where I think that the WNBA is going to be able to grow more with a lot of these other players, too, coming in bigger cities as well. Now, again, Angel Reese is saying what she said. Like, in theory, she shouldn't be wrong because there's other really talented players. But at the same time, you're also creating the image of being a villain, which you should be able to do that yourself, not have somebody else do cheap shots on Caitlin Clark in order to do that. Like, you want to spawn the rivalry you two had in college, fine. You want to be able to make that kind of thing work for a Midwestern rivalry, Chicago versus Indiana, do that kind of thing and grow your own personality your own way. So maybe Caitlin Clark isn't the only one talked about. I'm not saying she should be the only one talked about because there are other great players. That's where I think Pat McAfee's wrong, but she's the popular one. Like, let her be her. Let her play the game the way she should and let the game grow revenue-wise the way that she should. You said it, the WNBA is very poorly run where there's not enough teams.
There's not enough stars.
Yes, Toronto got an expansion team finally, and I think Philadelphia, they're working on something where Philadelphia might in the future as well. But there's not a lot of big cities that have it too, besides New York, Chicago, LA.
Do you remember the 90s in the NBA? There were not many foreign players in the NBA. Right. I mean, it was Tony Kukoc. I mean,
Detlef Schrempf.
Yeah, there were not many great foreign NBA players because it didn't grow foreignly until Michael Jordan really broke out and became a superstar. And when the Dream Team went overseas and won the gold medal and became one of the greatest teams anybody's ever seen with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and that team, the Dream Team and Michael Jordan changed everything. And why? It opened up the floodgates for countries like Lithuania, China, Spain, Norway, Germany. All these guys, Dirk Nowitzki's from Germany.
Pau Gasol,
Marc Gasol, Spain. These guys come, and now you're looking at guys like Luka Doncic and the Joker and Giannis, Greece. These guys are foreign players. They've taken over the NBA. Michael Jordan opened those floodgates. Air Jordan opened those floodgates. Why can't Caitlin Clark open those floodgates for women? Some of these foreign young ladies overseas that are rather playing volleyball or softball or, I don't know, table tennis or whatever the hell they play over there. Soccer.
I think even some of the international volleyball teams are making more than some of the WNBA players.
That's what I'm saying. Now they're going to look at playing in the WNBA, playing professional women's basketball. Why? Because of Caitlin Clark. Why are these girls hating on her? It's helping the league. It's going to help them make money. I don't understand it. And you know what? It is a great story because it doesn't matter if Stephen A. Smith argues it or even Pat McAfee. To me, women's basketball, women's sports are growing. Yeah. Women players are growing into the sports. They're becoming stars. If you watch when Summer Olympics are right around the corner in Paris, okay? Everybody can't wait for that. Why? Because of gymnastics. Do you think anybody gives a crap about men's gymnastics? No, they care about the women's gymnastics. And yes, there are swimming too. Everybody thinks of Michael Phelps. Well, this year, what do people can't wait for? Some of those great women's swimmers. Yes, there are the women's sports are growing. And even look, women's soccer, which is bigger? Men's United States soccer or women's United States soccer? Yep. We all know the situation. Women's sports are growing. It's taking off. And to have somebody like this to be the face, Caitlin Clark to be the face of women's basketball and open up opportunities for these girls to get endorsed by many different companies like Reebok and Converse and Nike. This is great. This is great. The TV deals. Look at the NBA. Look at the TV deals the NBA is bringing in. Look at what the NHL has done over the last couple of years with Gary Bettman.
Mm-hmm. And they have now a PWHL, too, a women's league that just wrapped up. Minnesota, I think, won their championship against Boston. And I don't know if they're going to be affiliated with the NHL directly, but the NBA and the WNBA have been affiliated with each other for a while now. So why wouldn't they take on that kind of growth? And they've been a league that's been around a lot longer, too. Like you talked about soccer, too, and you talked about some of these other women's sports. Like those leagues are just coming in now. There's a women's professional soccer league, too. I think Alex Morgan plays out in San Diego or something like that. And they have a lot of different teams. But WNBA has been around for a while. It has a rich history that they should be embracing more than the NBA should be embracing more. So why would they downgrade something like this and not try to elevate Caitlin Clark to the level that she could be like everyone else?
Speaking of Tracy McGrady, he commented on Twitter. Well, I'm not going to say Twitter. We call it X. About Steph Curry being a top 5 player of all time, saying that he isn't even top 10. And he also mentioned that a top 5 player would still make the playoffs if 1 or 2 guys are missing, which Steph Curry has not done. He also mentioned that LeBron shouldn't be considered a top 5 until he gets a 5th ring. He also called Curry somebody that isn't a team-oriented player. I agree with him, by the way. Curry has made 10 All-Star games, is a 10-time All-NBA player, a 2-time scoring champion, a 2-time MVP, a 4-time champion, and is the NBA's all-time leading three-point shooter. Curry has an average of 24.8 points per game, 6.4 assists per game, and 4.7 rebounds throughout his 15-year NBA career. I'm going to say this because I have to give Steph Curry a lot of credit, because when he came into the league, and I remember him coming from Davidson, everybody thought he was a one-trick pony. He was a three-point shooter. I watched him, and I was a big Steph Curry, fan when he came out of Davidson. I really liked him. And when he signed and he was drafted by Golden State, 1 pick from the New York Knicks. I think he was drafted, 7th, and the Knicks were drafting 8.
And the Minnesota Timberwolves had 2 picks before the Warriors that didn't pick him.
That's right. But when Curry went to the Golden State Warriors, I thought it was going to be a good fit. I think he was going to be the face of that organization, and he had problems with his ankles early in his career, and he didn't really take off until his 5th year of his career. But when he took off for the NBA. But he, when he came into the NBA, he was a one-trick pony. And that's what I would say. But he changed his game. He opened up his game. When he came into the NBA, remember, when he was playing for Davidson, he was a shooting guard. He wasn't even a point guard. He was a 2 guard. If he was going to make it in the NBA, he had to transition and become the point guard. And a lot of people didn't think he was going to build the skill. A lot of people didn't think he had the skills to be a full-time point guard in the NBA. Well, he changed everybody's thoughts because he became a better ball handler. He really started a new regiment. And if you haven't checked out his regiment, you can check it out on YouTube, his ball handling regiment before games and practices. He changed his game. He became a better rebounder for a guy his size. Remember, when he decided to go and play college ball, nobody wanted him in Division I. Why? Because he was too small and too skinny. Davidson was the only school that gave him a shot. If you remember, his brother played for Duke. And why did he play for Duke? Because of what Steph Curry did for Davidson. Now, his brother is nothing like Steph. He's nothing like Steph. But he's a good all-around player. And Steph opened up the gates for his brother to make it to the NBA and have a long NBA career. He has opened up the floodgates for some of these youngsters that now believe that they don't have to be 6'4" or 6'7" and be big to make it to the NBA. All you need to know how to do is shoot. And now you have all these different kids that are small and they're never going to get over 5'10" or 5'11", or they're 5'9", but they're good shooters and they're learning. They're shooting 300, 400 shots a game. Steph Curry opened up the opportunity for these kids to develop a basketball skill like that. When you look at Tracy McGrady was a great player. Played for Toronto, was drafted by Isaiah Thomas, played with Vince Carter, was also cousins with Vince Carter. He changed the game when he left and he went to play for Houston. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but when he became the guy in Houston, he changed the league. He won a scoring title. He was one of the best two guards in the NBA. And he changed the game. He did. He opened up opportunities for guys like Steph Curry to develop a skill like that and have a skill like that. And everybody keeps thinking that Steph Curry ruined the game of basketball. I'm one of those guys that it became a three-point game. Now, if you can out-duel somebody at the three-point line, if you're scoring more threes, there's a good chance you're going to win those games. But when Tracy McGrady came out and said that Steph Curry isn't a top 5 player, he's not even a top 10 player, I would agree with him. Not because of the rings, as he said that he doesn't believe LeBron James is a top 5 player, which I think he's wrong. He's not wrong about Steph Curry. He's not. Now, that doesn't mean Steph Curry isn't one of the greatest players of this time, of this era. He is. He's changed the game. He's opened up opportunities for kids to want to come and play in the NBA, even though they're not big, strong, big men. Because the league is not it's not a big man league anymore. You need to know how to shoot. Why do you need to know how to shoot? For guys like Tracy McGrady and Kobe Bryant. Those type of players. And then and obviously Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and now Steph Curry. That doesn't make Steph Curry a top 10 player. I always believe that in the NBA, if you're going to be a top 10 player, you got to change the game somehow. Now, that doesn't mean that Steph Curry didn't change the game, bringing in the 3-point, but has he made the game better? Is the game better now that the 3-point shot is so important to the game and dominating a game? If you look at Dallas, why did Dallas beat the Timberwolves? They shot more threes. They hit more threes. The Timberwolves couldn't hit a lick in that series.
Basically, if Anthony Edwards was off, the whole team was off.
Kyrie Irving was hitting threes. Luka Doncic was hitting threes all over. Even some of their secondary players were shooting threes. That's why Dallas is in the finals right now. Yeah, and they played great basketball too. I'm not going to lie. But they out-dueled the Timberwolves. Why did the Timberwolves beat Denver? They outshot Denver at the 3-point line.
Denver missed like 15 straight threes in Game 7 or something like that.
The game has changed. But again, when I look at the top 10 players, Michael Jordan, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, I mean, I could go Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon. I could go on and on and on. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. These guys changed their positions. They changed everything. It opened up. Magic Johnson opened up the athletic, big, small forward that could play multiple positions. Opened it up for guys like LeBron James. He did. A guy that could play the point guard position, but it also could play multiple positions. He opened that up. He changed the game. Larry Bird, a 6'8", 6'9", 3-point shooter from Indiana, opened up the game, changed the game. Not only, he wasn't just a 3-point shooter, he was great all around, a great ball handler for a guy his size, for a small forward / power forward. And he could play multiple positions, and he was a good defender. You could go on and on and on. Tim Duncan.
Yep.
Tim Duncan was the master of boring basketball. Great defender, great rebounder, the master of the bank shot. Nobody cared about it, but you know what they did care about? When he was on the court and when he was healthy, they were winning championships. He made everybody around them better. As Tracy McGrady came out and said that he doesn't believe that Steph Curry makes everybody around him better. I would agree with that. They won one championship. They won one championship with the three guys before they had to bring Kevin Durant in to help them win multiple championships. And he wasn't even the best player on that team, on that roster. Kevin Durant was. Now, has Kevin Durant won without Golden State? No, because he's a me player. He doesn't make anybody around him better. LeBron James does. That's why LeBron James has won 4 championships. Right? It's 4? I think he's won
4
5.
championships.
Right. 4. Kobe Bryant? A lot of people would put Kobe Bryant on the top 10. I don't. Because he's the complete mimic of Michael Jordan. Now, that doesn't mean that Kobe, some people wouldn't put him there. I know Stephen A. Smith puts Kobe Bryant as a top 10 player, the Black Mamba. I know a lot of people think that Kobe Bryant is one of the greatest basketball players ever. And he might be in some people's list of great players. I look at Allen Iverson. He changed the game. A guy his size, as athletic as he is, he brought in that dominant crossover. Kyrie Irving is one of the best I've ever seen. And if, like I said on the show many, many times, if Kyrie Irving just kept his mouth shut, he could be looked and considered as one of the most talented players we've ever seen in the NBA. Kobe didn't talk on the court. He let his game do the talking. Allen Iverson did too, besides going to practice. The thing is, you have to change the game, and you got to make the game better. And I don't know if Steph Curry has. And to be considered one of the greatest, you have to make everybody around you better. Hakeem Olajuwon made everybody around him better. Maxwell, even Charles Barkley, at the tail end of his career, was a better player.
Kenny the Jet Smith, I think.
Kenny the Jet Smith.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Horry. Robert Horry played for great teams. Why do you think Robert Horry, I think, has 8 championships?
Yeah, it's the second most all time, only to Bill Russell.
Why do you think he's won 8 championships? He played for great teams. He played for San Antonio, Tim Duncan. He played for Houston. Oh, you got to play with Hakeem Olajuwon.
He played for the Lakers.
He played for the Lakers. He got to play with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. When you play with great players, you're going to have great expectations. And that's called winning. Steph Curry has played with great players. Has he made Klay Thompson better? No. Has he made Draymond Green better? No. If anything, and it's crazy for me to say this, I think Draymond Green has made all of them better when they play with him. When he was at the top of his game, Draymond Green was a good rebounder. He wasn't a great scorer. He was an average scorer. I mean, he averaged his best year was 14, 15 points, but he did everything good. Steal, defend multiple positions. That's what you do as a championship team. Look at Nikola Jokic. He's a great scorer, but he's a great defender. He's a great passer. He's a great rebounder. Those kind of guys don't grow on trees. Those are special players. Do I believe Nikola Jokic at this time is a top 10 player? No. But if Nikola Jokic wins another championship, which he could, he's going to be considered a top 10 player of all time because he changes the game.
And also the well-roundedness of certain players that has to be accounted for when you're doing these types of rankings too. And both, I think, Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic could come for that kind of thing down the road. They have to do more. They're younger, but they have to do more. And a lot of these guys you're putting in the top 10 arguments are much more well-rounded players than Steph Curry is. Now, Steph Curry, I think he's a better, I know his assist numbers don't show like Chris Paul does or Jason Kidd or these other top point guards of all time, but that's because he shoots a lot too. He's also a very good ball handler and good off-the-ball type guy. Now, his defense is flawed. I think his inside game has been better than expected, but still not great in comparison to other things. And that's something you could take away in comparison to these other guys. Now, I'm not going to bash him for size. I'm not going to bash him for skill, anything like that. But Kobe Bryant was a much more well-rounded player than Steph Curry. So was Jason Kidd. And a lot of those centers you mentioned, Hakeem Olajuwon was a great passer for a big man. Tim Duncan was a tremendous passer.
Charles Barkley.
Yeah. So there's enough of those types of guys that are still well-rounded. Now, do I think he's top 20? Yes, I would say he's top 20.
I don't think he's top 20.
He's probably in that more like 15.
Top 25.
20. Okay. 15 to 20 range for me, whatever. Again, you're picking and choosing a lot of these different types of centers.
That's where I think Kobe is. I think Kobe's 15 or 16 on my list.
Okay. And Kobe Bryant is a much more well-rounded player that could do everything in comparison to Steph Curry. I'm not saying that Steph Curry didn't have traits.
Kobe Bryant was an all-NBA defensive player and an all-NBA offensive player. I mean, he did everything. Steph Curry will never be an all-NBA first or second team defensive player or third team. I mean, he's not that type of player. That doesn't mean that Steph Curry hasn't been a big part of the game's growth and why players and young kids want to be like him and want to play in the NBA like him. I bet you his jersey is the most sold jersey right now, still to this day in the NBA.
Sure.
I think it is, but that doesn't change anything. His stardom is not going to change what his talent is. Okay. But when Tracy McGrady came out like that and said that, he's not lying. I would agree with him. Tracy McGrady might be a top 30 player. I don't think Tracy McGrady's a top 25 player.
No, I don't either.
So I think Steph Curry's a better player than Tracy McGrady. So Tracy McGrady attacking Steph Curry, I mean, he needs to look himself in the mirror. If he thinks he's better than what Steph Curry is, how many championships does Tracy McGrady have?
I don't even think he had one.
He doesn't have one. So I understand. And again, Tracy McGrady is a Hall of Famer. He is going to be in the Hall of Fame. One way or another, he will be in the Hall of Fame. But for Tracy McGrady to attack somebody who's better than he is, that's interesting. That is interesting. But again, I don't disagree with him. I think he's absolutely right. Steph Curry, it takes a lot to be moved up in the top 10. You have to be special. You got to be great. Steph Curry, I know he won 2 MVPs. One of those MVPs he should have never won. I'm just speaking the truth.
You would have given it to LeBron that year? That was
yes, absolutely. Honestly, Michael Jordan, when Michael Jordan was at the top of his game, he should have won 8 MVPs in a row. 8. He was the best player in the league for like 9, 10, 12 years straight. And I understand the NBA don't want to do that because they want to give everybody a chance. And they gave it to Charles Barkley. There were other guys that won the MVP. Hakeem Olajuwon, I think, won an MVP one year.
Right.
He gave Karl Malone. In the 90s, the NBA and David Stern did not want to give the MVP just to Michael Jordan, even though he knew Michael Jordan was everything to the NBA. He changed the game. He was everything to the growth of what the NBA has become to this day. But Steph Curry has done a lot for the NBA too. But even with that, he's not the best player in the league. He never was. Steph Curry was never the best player in the league, even when he won those 2 MVPs. LeBron James was.
Yeah, and you also look at the MVP status in general for a lot of these, the patterns of it, even in the 2000s, when you look at some of the controversial ones, there's always, everyone talks about the one that Steve Nash won that he should never have won because Kobe and Dirk were definitely that much better. You could even talk about this year, people were debating Jokic or Doncic too. Like they made a give it to
I
Jokic.
think Doncic got absolutely screwed.
I can see that angle because Jokic got screwed last year because of Embiid, so maybe they thought of it as all right, we're going to give it to you this year because of the sympathy thing. Whereas Luka Doncic had a better year than Embiid did last year when you look at comparing those 2 years, and then you look at James Harden when he won the MVP. I thought Anthony Davis should have won MVP. Other people thought LeBron. Like they don't want to do that kind of thing. I guess to maybe split up the awards to make sure there's a lot of great players. It's been good for their brand. It's been good for a lot of other things. But yeah, there's definitely some fishiness when it comes to the MVPs.
The best player in the NBA right now is Luka Doncic. I've been saying that for the last 2 years. I think he is the best player in the NBA. And I think eventually the NBA is going to see that to be that. And I will say this, Luka Doncic and guys like Nikola Jokic, they have changed the game.
Oh, yeah.
And it changes the game. Because when you watch them, they're not athletic guys. There's nothing athletic about them. As a matter of fact, they're big dudes. They're a little overweight. When you look at Luka, is he cut? Is he muscular? Is he like LeBron James? Is he like any of these other guys? No. But what makes him special is his technique, the way he plays the game, the way he sees the court. And he's an unbelievable shooter. He can shoot everywhere. He can shoot a 17, 18-foot jumper. He can get into the paint, and he can shoot threes all over the court. He's special. Those guys are special. They don't grow on trees. And I'm not saying Steph Curry, you're going to find another Steph Curry again. I don't know if you will ever see another Steph Curry again as a three-point shooter as dominant as he has been. But do I believe he is right there with some of the greatest of all time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And also, you look at some of the traits that those two guys possess, Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic, that could be their next transcendent for the game as well. Nikola Jokic being that new big man type point guard, the way he passes the ball, it's like otherworldly what he does, the creativity that does. And Luka Doncic, the ball handling skills that he has for somebody that big as well, transforming the point guard position that way. And some of the greats you were talking about already, like they had their own trendsetter for that kind of thing. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the hook shot, that type of floater that really revolutionized the center position. Larry Bird, you were talking about, really revolutionized the three-point shooting for that somebody that size in the 80s when they just came out with the rule of having a three-point line. Like, that's why I don't think a well-rounded player could be alleviated if they also change the game in their own way. Steph Curry definitely changed the game, no doubt. He's definitely, when you look at influence-wise, top 10. But when you look at the well-rounded game attached to that of what it could be, yeah, I agree with Tracy McGrady on that one.
ESPN reports that the MLB has officially closed the investigation into Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter. He pleaded guilty to bank and tax fraud charges this morning and will get a prison sentence that is up to 33 years. He pleaded guilty to directly using Ohtani's bank accounts without his permission and had direct access to his bank in Japan. Matthew Boyer, the bookie involved in the illegal operations, is also being investigated. MLB also banned an athletic pitcher for 1 year while he was betting in the minor leagues. MLB also banned a Padres prospect for life for illegal betting charges from 2022 when he was a Pirate, and betting charges from the last season while he was a minor league player for the Padres. I'm going to say something. The fact that the MLB is done investigating Ohtani's interpreter and Ohtani, it's just an absolute joke. It's a shame because you're watching players go down right now. Players being suspended for a year or even being suspended for life. And Shohei Ohtani, who claims he knew nothing about the $17 or $18 million his interpreter was taking out of his account and using it to bet on not just baseball, but other sports, to me, doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to sit here and say that Shohei Ohtani didn't get away with something like this and think that baseball didn't have something behind it. Baseball, and I'm not just saying professional baseball, professional sports, when you have superstars this big, like Shohei Ohtani. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is one of the best hitters in baseball, one of the better pitchers in baseball, and he has been the face of professional baseball for the last 4 years. When you have a player that good and baseball trying to grow, when you see the NHL getting their new TV deals, and when you see the NBA growing like they have over the last couple of years, foreignly and domestically, and then you look at, obviously, what the NFL is doing, what they're doing in Germany, having games in Germany, having games, all over the place, England. Now they're going to have it in another country, Brazil this coming year. So they're making it an all-around sport throughout the world, and they're going to only grow. And eventually, the NFL is going to have an NFL team in England. I do believe it. Eventually, it's going to happen. I know nobody wants to agree to it, but it's going to happen. It is going to happen. But the story here is how baseball could just turn their head on this story. It doesn't make any sense. I would not be happy about this if I'm a baseball fan. Why? Because if one player can get away with it, one superstar can get away with it, many superstars can get away with it. Pete Rose was not liked by Major League Baseball. Pete Rose was not a player when he got caught. He was a manager. If he was a player, I bet you baseball brushes it under the rug. They would never kick out one of the great players, one of the greatest hitters of all time. No way. Because he's putting fannies in his seats. He's making them money. When Pete Rose retired and he became a manager, what is he bringing in? Is he bringing in any fans in his seats to watch him manage the Cincinnati Reds? No. Nobody cared about Pete Rose anymore. Nobody cared about Babe Ruth when he wanted to manage the Yankees when his career was done. He never got a chance to manage because the Yankees screwed him. But even if he did, do you think anybody was going to come and watch Babe Ruth manage the Yankees? No. That's the facts. You look at baseball right now, obviously with all the tainted situations that have happened in the 90s with steroids, which they have made steroids bigger than this whole betting situation with Shohei Ohtani, which is it's just remarkable because obviously when you look at betting, it opens up money for the government. Why do you think the government is allowing betting, sports betting now throughout the country? It's going to happen in all the states. Probably in the next 2 or 3 years, it will be legal in every single state in the country. Why? Because now politicians and the government has found a way to tax it. So they're bringing in millions and billions of dollars to take and do whatever they want with it. And that's what the government does. They just want to take. And professional teams, all they want to do is take. The MLB, you don't think the MLB is sitting here today probably brushing the sweat off their foreheads? Thank God that we got away with this. How much did they have to pay the FBI to get away with this?
Yeah, that's the other thing that I question with the impulsivity of MLB in this case. Now, I'm not going to jump to judgment and say he's definitively guilty, but they jumped to judgment.
I will. He's definitively guilty.
All right.
Definitively guilty.
Even so, like they jumped to judgments with this and didn't investigate something a little more thoroughly. When this bookie Boyer was connected with some of the other guys that were caught as well, he was connected with some of the I think it was a Pirates minor leaguer a couple of years ago as well. Like there were connections of this kind of thing, and we were talking about it with the other things that they were being investigated. It wasn't just sports betting too. There was a much bigger ring of stuff going on in Vegas as well, and that kind of thing can't just be brushed under the rug and say, all right, we're going to just close the case automatically when there's government stuff involved, when there's potentially banking guys involved.
Here's the problem. When you see somebody like Jeff who says, I know nothing about it, that's why it doesn't make any sense to me. Hey, Jeff, you're going to tell me right now you're a sports bettor, and there's so many offshore accounts that you can hide money and you can do so much things to. How does baseball investigate something where it took them how many years to find out who was doing steroids in the investigation under steroids? How long did it take them to do that? I don't know, a couple of years. All of a sudden, in what? In a 2-month span, it's all done. It's shut, and nobody wants to talk about it anymore. Why do you think baseball is shutting the door on this? Because he's a superstar player.
Right.
That's why. That's why they're shutting the door on it. Oh, because it doesn't make sense. You know what, Jeff? You're going to stick up for the bettor because you're a betting man. That's what you do. That's what you do for a living. You're going to sit there and bet on sports, and you think it's okay for players to do that. But when it's illegal in professional baseball and it's illegal in professional sports to bet on sports when you're playing a professional sport, well, that's different. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Baseball absolutely paid the FBI. They absolutely paid to brush this under the rug. And then to me, the fact that baseball is closing this now, it should stay open. There's more than just 2 or 3 players that were involved in this ring.
And it's more than just sports betting. We were talking about so many other things that this bookie was caught with. Like, they could close the case all they want. And it's okay to believe Ohtani is innocent and also say baseball is stupid too, like with the way they're handling
Well, they are.
this. Yeah.
They have Rob Manfred.
The way they're handling this is definitely flawed. And that kind of thing, whether he is actually innocent or not, I still believe he is, but whether he is actually innocent or not.
You think he's innocent?
I do, but I don't think that baseball's handling it right either. Like, still investigate more thoroughly. This bookie is going to be investigated.
So you're telling me you think that Ohtani knew nothing about this?
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because I think he would have signed with Toronto otherwise. But regardless, this bookie is being investigated now. Why don't you wait for that investigation before you make any rash impulse decisions?
You're going to tell me one of your best friends on the team was caught betting and part of this ring, but Ohtani knew nothing about it. His best friend on the team knew everything about it, was a part of it, was caught with it, all that other stuff. They do all these fancy handshakes over there in a dugout.
Right.
Him and Ohtani are so very close. You're going to tell me he knew about it, but Ohtani didn't?
Yeah, that's why you can't stop the investigation.
Yeah, that's a joke.
That's
a bunch of crock, okay? To me, I'm not going to sit here and try to lie to myself or lie to any of the fans listening to the show right now. I don't care who Jeff thinks he is or what he thinks he knows. You cannot tell me right now that Shohei Ohtani knew nothing about that. He absolutely did. You could book that. And I don't even have to be a fly on the wall, or I don't have to be the toilet paper that he wipes his ass with. I know for damn sure, Shohei Ohtani knew something about this. There's no way that 18 or 20 million was missing out of his pockets and he knew nothing about it. How many accountants does he have? You're going to tell me the accountants aren't going to reach out to him and say, you're missing 1.5 million, you're missing $3 million. Get out of here. That is a joke. And I'm not giving them the benefit of doubt. And I'm not going to give the baseball a benefit of doubt after what they did to Pete Rose and what they've done to baseball in the 90s with steroids, which, by the way, should have been allowed. And half of these players, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, every single one, Roger Clemens, every single one of these guys should be in the Hall of Fame. So shame on MLB, shame on Bud Selig, shame on Rob, a.k.a. Idiot Manford, for not allowing that. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to our friend, Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster, Tim Alcorn. But first, our Sports Minute with Tommy Scoops.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
That's right. It is 8 o'clock. Everybody knows it is time for the Sports Loudmouth Sports Report with the man Tommy Scoops. Getting straight into it, over in the NBA. Jonte Porter allegedly threw games to cover significant gambling debts. After receiving a lifetime ban back in April from the NBA for betting on NBA games, Porter was encouraged to throw games to clear certain debts. Over in the NFL, the Eagles announced that they are going to be moving veteran cornerback James Bradberry to safety. After the Eagles drafted 2 cornerbacks this draft, head coach Nick Sirianni is confident Bradberry can successfully make the transition based off of his game last season. And lastly, after missing voluntary team activities, linebacker Micah Parsons downplayed the situation, saying he is caught up on the team's defense and it allowed his body to rest for next season. Going into Scoops and Scores right now, currently over in the MLB, only slate of games that we got going on. The Yankees have a 1-0 lead over Minnesota, with Kansas City having a 5-3 lead over Cleveland. Pittsburgh has a 1-0 lead over Los Angeles. Milwaukee has a 1-0 lead over Philadelphia, with Tampa Bay having a 9-3 lead over Miami. The Mets have a 5-0 lead over Washington, while Baltimore has a 4-0 lead over Toronto, and Atlanta has a 2-1 lead over Boston. That's currently all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to be back later in the show for an update, but I'm going to send it back to the boys on the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Willie Whoppers, Speedy! Willie Whoppers! No, I'm not embracing it. I'm going to cure some other things. No, I would rush her to the hospital. You said smothering. It's not something I think about. No, I'm not embracing it. Good for me, good for you. It's good for both.
Do you bend the meat? 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy. Petey, go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey, every single Tuesdays and Thursdays now. All you have to do to go and listen to all our shows, obviously, Snowman in the Morning, what do they call it? The Wise Guys? I mean, the wise guy. But every single one of our shows, including Game On, all you have to do is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Oh, man, we have a very special guest. We love when he comes on, and now that the season is over for the Cavaliers, we have him on. We're now talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. Timmy, what's up, buddy? We got him. What's going on with Timmy?
Yeah, you're muted, Tim.
Tim, you're muted.
Go out and back in.
He's got to go out and back in. All right,
Tim, you got to go out and back in.
We got a mic problem from Mr. Tim Alcorn. So, Tim, just come back in, go in and go out, and we'll get you back on. So we're going to have Tim Alcorn. Tim Alcorn has problems with his mic. Just go in and out, Tim. But to finish up with the whole Shohei Ohtani situation, Speedy, I look at baseball as a whole right now, and baseball needs to figure out, and they need to understand that if they continue doing these things, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt from all the other sports they're growing their sport, they're growing their product, and I think the product is still very, very good. I mean, look what the Yankees are doing right now. I mean, look at the kid that they have right, Gill. Look what he's doing on the mound. He's on the mound tonight. It's 3-0 in the 4th inning. He's pitching another shutout. So, Tim, are you good now? No, we don't have them. All right, just call Tim.
Tim, we're going to stay in the video. We're going to call you as well.
All right, just Tim, we're going to call you. We're going to put you through. I don't know what's going on with your mic. So, Tim, you could put your picture up. You could put your picture up so you could see us. And all right, there we go. There you go, Tim. We're going to call you. Oh, he's on his phone.
Oh,
he's on his phone. That's the problem. We're having problems. Why don't we go to a quick break? When we come back, we will have our very special guest. We will be talking to Tim Alcorn here on the Sports Loudmouth.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. All right. Timmy, what's going on, bro?
Not too much. How you doing, guys?
We're good, man. You can put yourself on speakerphone. I mean, you don't have to put your ear to the thing. Put it on speakerphone, and you can. There you go. There you go. You can hear us. We got you. Yeah, we hear you. It's a little in and out, but we're happy to have you on. As everybody knows, we are talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. Timmy, how's everything going? How's your off season going now that the Cavaliers are done? What's the take on Donovan Mitchell? Is he getting that contract?
Wow, you front there. So first of all, I'm having a great off season. I've been enjoying the downtime and decompressing a little bit, although that won't be for a long time. I'm actually heading out on the road on Thursday. Very honored that the Cleveland Guardians have asked me to do some baseball for them this weekend. So I'll be in Miami for the Guardians and the Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins, and looking forward to that. So that'll get me back behind the play-by-play mic. But yeah, for the Cavaliers, there's a lot going on this offseason. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned Donovan Mitchell. That's certainly question number one. Right behind that, who's going to be the head coach of the Cavaliers? Question number one being perhaps, and then any other roster changes or tweaks that they're going to make. So, yeah, there's a lot happening with this Cavalier team.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the coach. Are you surprised with Bickerstaff that he got fired? And if so, like, is it, you think it's a player thing? Do you think it's do they have another coach in mind type thing?
Well, to answer your first question, I wasn't shocked. Carter was the 6th longest tenure NBA at 4.5 years. So,
Tim, move your phone a little bit closer. That's probably why it's going in and out. But go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's better. Yes.
So he was the 6th longest tenured coach in the NBA at 4.5 years, and so with essentially the same group with some tweaks here and there. So as Kobe Altman addressed the media at the end of the season, he said, listen, there is nothing negative, zero negativity about JB Bickerstaff. The sense was that perhaps this group just needed to hear a different voice and perhaps a different set of eyes needed to work with this group. So According to Kobe Altman, and I take the president of the Cavaliers at his word, there certainly isn't going to be any major roster shakeup or roster rebuilding. They think they have a nucleus in place that can advance. They just determined that it was J.D. Bickerstaff who got them to this level. Now, who will it be to take them to the next level?
We are talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster, our friend Tim Alcorn. Very busy man, as always busy. Darius Garland said some interesting things at the end of the season. One of the things that he said, that if Donovan Mitchell gets a long-term deal, he wants to be traded. What are your thoughts to that? Do they have a good relationship, or does Darius Garland want out? He has no feelings that are good when it comes to Donovan Mitchell.
Well, let me address the first part of that first. Darius Garland is not on record as saying that. There are reports, and again, there are reports that Garland's people, his agents, have said that to Kobe Altman and to the Cavaliers as an organization. But there's nothing out there that says Darius Garland himself has said to the Cavalier organization, I want this to happen if Donovan Mitchell does indeed re-sign or extend his contract. Now, I have been around Donovan and DG for 2 years now. They get along fabulously off the floor. There is no rift. There's no tension. They hang out at the hotel together. They sit on the bus together. I've never seen anything that would indicate these guys don't get along. As far as on the court is concerned, the metrics say they play well together. You dig into the analytics, they're about a +6, 6.5, I believe, in the time together out on the floor. So I don't see any personal rift. I never have. I've never sensed that with the two guys, body language or even just verbally. They're always laughing and joking around. So, and believe me, we've all been around locker rooms. We've all been around teams. If there's tension between guys, you can feel it. You can sense it. I've never had that feeling. And again, as far as does he want out, those are reports that are circulating, but there hasn't been anything concrete from DG himself that he has said that to the Cavaliers as an organization.
So two young players, Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro, both making some progressions in certain areas. Mobley, a very good defensive player, one of the best in the league, and Isaac Okoro looking like a very good perimeter guy as well. So what are your thoughts on those two players and the Cavaliers? What do they have to do with them with their contracts coming up?
Well, first of all, you've got Isaac coming into his restricted free agency. So he's going to put himself out there, but the Cavaliers will be able to match any offer that he would receive and or do a sign and trade. But the Cavaliers are high on Isaac Okoro. They like him, and they thought, to your point, his defense has been elite since the time he came into the league. Offensively, he certainly struggled the first couple of years. You can't sugarcoat that. But this past season, his offensive production did go up. His three-point shooting did go up. Now, it dropped during the playoffs. So do you look at the larger sample size, or do you look at the 12 games in the playoffs, the 7 with Orlando and the 5 with Boston? But the Cavaliers are high on on Isaac Okoro. They're not just going to let him walk away. Evan Mobley, I thought, really sparkled in that Boston series. He really came to play, and he had to with Jared Allen out of the lineup in that series against the Celtics. So believe me, the Cavaliers, third pick in the draft, rookie of the year runner-up a couple of years ago to Scotty Barnes in Toronto. So they see Evan Mobley's game developing, and they're very high on Evan Mobley. So I think they want to keep both of those guys around. And going back to what I said earlier, Kobe Altman's season-ending press conference, he said, I don't see a major roster shakeup. I like this core group, and they've only been together 2 years. And in both of those years, especially this year, they've been riddled with injuries. They just need to get through a season healthy. It's interesting, guys, for this projected starting 5, once Max Strus was brought in, the projected starting 5, Garland, Mitchell, Strus, Mobley, Allen, they only started 28 games this year. Wow. That's 1/3 of the season, which means 2/3 of the year, that projected starting 5 didn't take the floor to start the game. So I think the Cavaliers are looking at that and saying, we got to the second round against Boston. Yeah, we got knocked out in 5, but we never had Jared Allen. We didn't have Donovan Mitchell for the final 2 games of that series, and they didn't have LeVert for the 5th game. And yet I thought in games 4 and 5, they played their asses off. They played hard. So I think the Cavs organization is looking at that as saying there's no need to restructure this roster.
You know, it's so interesting when you brought up the Boston series, because the Boston series really stood out to me because Donovan Mitchell was not playing in that series the last 2 games. Jared Allen barely played. And like you said, Karis LeVert, I thought that if all 3 of those guys were healthy, and I thought that if the Cavaliers were healthy, they probably could have given Boston a run for their money. I think the matchup fit that series. And I think the Boston Celtics, as good as they are on paper, I think they have a lot of weaknesses, especially coming off their bench. Did you think if the Cavaliers were 100% healthy, did you think the Cavaliers had a chance to win that series?
Absolutely. I do. One of the worst things in sports, really in life in general, is what if. But I will absolutely look back at that Boston series and say, what if Jared Allen had been able to play? He didn't play in any of the games, and he missed the final 3 games against Orlando. He played in the first 4. So if you have Jared Allen in that Boston series, if you have Donovan Mitchell for games 4 and 5, LeVert for game 5, to your point, I'm not saying they would have beat Boston, but they could have extended that series. I really believe that. And then the pressure really would have been on the Celtics. So again, woulda, coulda, but what if Jared Allen had played, especially with Porzingis out? And what if Donovan Mitchell had been healthy for those final 2 games where the Cavs were right there with 5 minutes to go in each one of those ball games? They just didn't have their closer. So absolutely, I believe if the Cavs had been fully healthy, they could have given Boston all they could have handled in that semifinal round, no doubt.
I thought that the Cleveland Cavaliers had the size against them. Mobley, the way he was playing, Jared Allen, if they had the size, and no Porzingis, even with Porzingis, I think Porzingis obviously spreads the floor out for the Boston Celtics, and we all know that, and it's going to play dividends against the Dallas Mavericks, who are a very good team, especially the way they spread the floor with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. I think that Boston is beatable. You could beat them, and they in every one of their series they had problems. Even look at Indiana. Indiana didn't have Halliburton. They're a young team. They had problems against Indiana. As a matter of fact, Indiana should have won game number 1 if they didn't let Jaylen Brown hit that 3-pointer with the last second and a half left of that the 4th quarter. It unbelievable. And maybe if they win that game, they spread out the game, and maybe they win that series. So I think Boston's a little bit overrated. I don't think they're going to beat Dallas. I think the way the Dallas Mavericks are playing and what they did against the Timberwolves could only spell trouble for that team.
I've surprised a few people with this comment and a few other interviews that I've done. I like Dallas in this series. I really do. I think Dallas can beat Boston. And to your point, I think Boston, there have been some things that have been exposed. Indiana could have very easily have been up 2-1 in that series. They let a couple of games get away from them early in the series. As I said, with the Cavaliers, what if? Again, you can't what if it to death, but what if Allen and Mitchell had been healthy? Going back to the first round, Jimmy Butler doesn't play for Miami. So I agree. I'm not saying Boston's overrated. Listen, they earned the best record in the NBA, 64 wins. But I think there are some things that can get exposed, and I think Dallas is the team to do that. And I like the Mavericks to win the NBA championship. They're just playing at an elite level right now.
So any concepts you saw in the Western Conference Finals that you think Dallas could translate over to play against the Celtics, and who are going to have Porzingis allegedly for game 1, but maybe not 100%?
Yep. From what I've read, Porzingis is going to go. I've talked to a couple of people in Boston. They think he'll be ready to go for Thursday night. The thing that I like about Dallas is 2 closers. And we had Kyrie Irving here in Cleveland. I watched him play up close and personal. He hit the biggest shot in Cavalier history, the 3-ball against Golden State in Game 7. Kyrie Irving has zero fear. He fears nothing as far as the game of basketball in the moment is concerned. So I think Kyrie is actually going to relish the reception he's going to receive in Boston. I think that's going to feed him. Luka, listen, he's been playing professional basketball since he turned teenager, since he was 13 years old. Big moments don't bother him. It's his first NBA Finals, but I don't think he'll be rattled by that. And I just like the way Dallas is playing right now. Utmost confidence. I think Jason Kidd has done a hell of a job as the head coach of that team, both with strategy and just dealing with personalities. And I think Boston is beatable. I agree with you. I think Boston can be beaten. Every team throughout the playoffs has gotten them for a game at Boston. Well, Indiana should have in game one. So I absolutely believe that Dallas is going to get one up there to start the series. And I think they're going to win. I really do.
You know, it's so interesting. And by the way, we were talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn, a friend of the show. We've had him on the show a couple of times. Great broadcaster and knows his basketball, knows his baseball too, by the way. But the two moves that really changed everything for the Dallas Mavericks was PJ Washington, and people forget that the trade at the trade deadline really changed everything. PJ Washington and Gafford. What are your thoughts of what these two guys have done so far in the playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks, and what kind of mismatches could they create against Boston in the NBA Finals?
That was brilliant organizational moves by Dallas to bring in PJ and Gafford, both with teams that had really been struggling, so flying under the radar. PJ with Charlotte, Gafford with Washington. Nobody was even paying attention to those teams, but Dallas knew the pieces that they were missing. Gafford is that guy in the middle. He can block shots. He can rebound. He's a perfect complement to what they have. And now you put PJ into the mix. I mentioned earlier about Kyrie and Luka. They don't play with any fear. That's the same with PJ Washington. He just goes out and he balls out. I mean, he just plays. And so I think those are guys that you make those type of deadline deals, you realize you're on the cusp. And Dallas was a team in the West that not a lot of people were talking about, but you could see it building with Kyrie and with Luka and how comfortable they were with one another and how Jason Kidd's system was working. But they knew they needed to add a piece or two. And I thought it was a stroke of genius to bring in Gafford and PJ Washington. I don't think they're in the NBA Finals without those two guys.
Tim, we're here in New York, and the Knicks get eliminated and against an Indiana team, a young Indiana team. If the Knicks were 100% healthy, just bad luck, just absolute bad luck, losing all the players that they did. They lost 4 of their top 5 starters throughout the season, and it affected. And Jalen Brunson breaking his hand in the final game of game number 7, just the Knicks' luck. What were your thoughts to the MVP voting? And it's not going to make a difference. I know Jalen Brunson came out and said, I could have won the MVP. I would have rather won the NBA championship or gone to an NBA championship. What were your thoughts on Jalen Brunson's season? And do you think that he should have been higher than 5th in the MVP voting?
I do. Brunson was absolutely magnificent for the Knicks this year. I mean, he literally put that team on his back at times. You alluded to the injuries. It came down to Jalen Brunson either winning or losing the game in so many instances, and more often than not, he won the game. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And, going back to last year, I remember talking to people in New York about the fact that they were disappointed they didn't end up with Donovan Mitchell, and it was almost as if, Brunson was this consolation prize. We didn't get Mitchell, but yeah, we got Jalen Brunson. Well, Jalen Brunson has shown he's an all-star player. He's an elite player, an MVP caliber player, and he played to that level this year. The things that you saw him do and watch him lead that basketball team was absolutely extraordinary. So, now where he should have been, I don't think he should have been MVP. I have no problem with Jokic. What that guy does is just amazing, game after game after game. I mean, that's a generational talent in Jokic for his skill level at everything, at scoring, at rebounding, at passing. But Jalen Brunson, as far as being a most valuable player to his team, you can't listen to the job he did, because as you alluded to, they were absolutely decimated by injuries, and yet Jalen Brunson was able to carry them as far as he could.
So, speaking of Jokic, there was comments a couple months ago about Dan Lebitard saying that Wemby and Jokic are going to quote unquote change the NBA. I think he said ruin the NBA as well. So, in your time broadcasting, seeing those two players, what are your impressions of them?
Well, I saw Wemby twice. Saw him down in San Antonio and then here in Cleveland. So, what's extraordinary with Wemby is just how gifted he is at that size. You know, we've all seen guys 7'5", 7'6", you know, the Manute Bowles and those type of guys. They're just big, tall guys. Wemby is incredibly gifted. His ball handling, his passing, his footwork at 19 years old. So, again, he's a generational type player, and it's going to be extraordinary to watch his growth because I don't know if I'll say he hasn't scratched the surface, but he still has a pretty high upside. And so, yeah, Victor Wembanyama, he's going to be the face of the NBA for a long time to come. He is absolutely extraordinary.
We are talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. There's a guy right now that's heading to Duke this year. A lot of people think he's going to be a generational talent, and that's Cooper Flagg. I don't know if you know anything about him. I've been following this kid for the last 3 years in high school. This guy's a sensational talent. He will be the #1 draft pick in next year's NBA draft. You can book it and you can sell it. Have you checked him out? What type of player you think he could turn out to be in the NBA?
I haven't seen a whole lot when you're immersed in an NBA season.
Right.
Believe me, you're watching your own team's 82 games and then trying to watch every other team that's coming up on your schedule. So I haven't had a chance to watch as far as that young man is concerned. I've certainly seen the YouTube and that type of thing. And as you said, he's a very special talent. He's a guy that I would agree with you as you look ahead. Projects very, very highly. That young man is going to be an outstanding player. But as far as really doing a deep dive into watching him, I just haven't been able to do that with everything that I was going through for the past season with the Cavaliers. I'll tell you, and any NBA guy that you would have on your program, I mean, it is just unrelenting. The games just keep coming. And so you don't really have a lot of time to watch, aside from NBA basketball, any other basketball, because you're just immersed in it from opening tip of the NBA season until your team gets knocked out.
Tracy McGrady said something very, very interesting this past, the last 24 hours. And the interesting thing is he doesn't believe Steph Curry is a top 5, top 10 player. I would agree with him. That's just me. What are your thoughts to Tracy McGrady's thoughts about Steph Curry?
Yeah, I saw that. That surprises me. To me, Steph Curry is probably the best 2 guard that's ever played the game.
Wow.
To me. I mean, just his shooting.
Better than Michael Jordan?
Well, no, he's not better than Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan's the greatest.
How about Dwayne Wade? Do you think he's better than Dwayne?
Yes, absolutely, I do. Yes, I do think he's better than Dwayne Wade. And again, you're really starting to split hairs when you get into these guys. But you talk about Steph Curry. He changed the game of basketball. Steph Curry absolutely changed the way the game was played insofar as his long ball shooting. The analytics were driving the game towards the 3 ball. I think we talked about this the last time I was on. But Steph Curry took it to a whole different level. So shooting guard, I'll put it that way, because Jordan did everything. And Michael Jordan, in my opinion, and believe me, you know, I'm here in Cleveland where LeBron played, and I called a couple of his high school games when he was at Akron St. Vincent St. Mary. So I know my audience, but listen, I've come down on the side of Michael before. I just think Michael was the best to ever do it. And that's, again, you're talking about Wilt and Bill Russell and, you know, Kobe Bryant, I think often gets left out of that conversation.
Well, Kobe was a 2. You think Steph is better than Kobe?
No. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think Steph, when you look at his role as a shooting guard, just a pure shooter, I think that puts him top 10 at least. Absolutely top 10 at least.
So there was another rumor too with Adam Silver saying that the NBA is trying to make some more rules to maybe balance out offense and defense a little more. You're not as much of the offensive game that you're seeing now. Not to make it like 1990s basketball, maybe closer to like 2000s.
I would love to see the 1990s basketball.
1980s basketball. So what are your thoughts to that? And Cleveland, being one of the defensive teams, definitely one of the teams that could benefit off of that.
Oh, there's no doubt. Cleveland prided itself on the defensive end of the floor. That was something that JB really instilled from the time that he became the head coach. We want to be a tough, strong, defensive-minded basketball team. And they rose in every defensive category every year that JB was the head coach. Listen, I'm old school. I'm a lot older than you guys. So
I'm getting up there in age, man. I'm 42, man. I'm getting up
But
there in age.
I don't mind a little knockdown, drag out physicality. In
How old are you, Tim? How old are you?
Pardon me?
How old are you, Tim?
60.
Oh, stop. You don't look 60. You look like you're in your
got
50s. You look like
Okay.
you look pretty good. You do. You look pretty good. I'm just telling you the
There's
truth.
a reason I'm on the radio, guys.
Tim, I'm not hitting on you, man. I'm not hitting on you. Don't worry. I'm not trying to hit on you. You got a wife to do that.
But no, I mean, I remember those games of the '80s with the Bad Boys and Lambert and Mahorn and those guys. I don't want to see it go back to that. But I do argue with the fact that, man, you put a hand on a guy and they're calling something. And listen, I understand the NBA wants points. It drives ratings. It drives viewership. It drives, clicks, all that. But I think you have to allow guys to at least play some defense. And I think fans would appreciate it as well. So, I don't think you have to make sweeping changes, but at least allow the game to be played at the defensive end of the floor.
It's so interesting. And Tim, you do such a great job, like I said, with the Cavaliers and NBA basketball. I don't know if anybody's actually checked you out because we don't live in New York, but any Cleveland Cavalier fan that doesn't know who Tim Alcorn is, but shame on you, what you're not listening to, but you are fantastic. My final question for you is, you look at the NBA and the transition of the game, and we speak about it, and Michael Jordan really brought international basketball to its higher heights. David Stern always, brought up Michael Jordan and what he has done for basketball. Over 200 countries follow the game of basketball when Michael Jordan retired. You look at the game right now, the three best players in the world right now are foreign. If you look at it, you have Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Giannis. When you look at three of those players, do you see these three players transitioning the game to bring more international superstars over here to dominate the league of the NBA still?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how much time we have, but when the Cavaliers played in Paris in January against Brooklyn, against the Nets, it's amazing how big the NBA game is in Europe. There were reporters and media and fans from across the European continent that made their way to Paris to take in that game. It's huge. It wasn't just Parisians and it wasn't just people from France. So I absolutely think the European flavor, the international flavor of the NBA is going to grow by leaps and bounds because you left out, and I don't mean this as a criticism, you left out Wembanyama.
Yeah, yes.
Who, of course, who's another foreign player. So, in fact, San Antonio, my understanding is, will be playing in France this year. I don't know who their opponent will be yet, but they're already going to bring Victor back over.
The Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm just kidding.
Probably was never team draft now star.
You don't go 2 years in a row. I do know that. It's very interesting because I asked our CEO, how is that chosen and how is that selected? And it's quite a long process. It takes a few years. But back to your point, yes, I think the international flavor of the game is going to be highly skilled.
We're losing you here. Game. There you go, Tim. I'm sorry. We lost you for a second.
No, my bad. But no, Luka was playing professionally at 13 years old. So these guys know the game. They've been brought up in the game. They stay up late at night in Europe to watch the NBA game when it's 6 hours behind them, as they're playing here in the States. So guys like Giannis and Wembanyama and Doncic and Nikola Jokic, who you mentioned, I think that's just the start of things. That flavor is going to grow. I think right now it's at about 30% players in the NBA that are international. That number will continue to grow.
Tammy, before we let you go, why haven't you invited us to come and actually see you live, do your radio takes over there in Cleveland? I'm upset at you, Tim. I'm upset
I'd
at
love
you.
to have you.
What's up with that?
In Cleveland, I sit in what is known as the Joe Tate perch, the legendary voice of the Cavaliers, basketball Hall of Famer, who I was very close with and very good friends with. And but we have seats right next to us for very special guests. So come on out, join us, man. We'd love to have you.
Well, Timmy, I'm gonna take you up on that offer. This coming year, we're gonna come and we're gonna hang out with Tim Alcorn. We're gonna watch basketball and listen to the great Tim Alcorn do his play-by-play. We really appreciate you as always. Speedy will keep in touch with you. You're fantastic. Keep up the good work, man. You are fantastic. One of the best in the business.
Oh, please do, man. I love coming on your show. You guys are great, man.
Thank you, Tim.
I love just talking hoops and whatever else, what other avenue you guys want to go down. But
Quickly, one question. You're a baseball guy.
Yes.
Did Ohtani know anything about the betting scandal?
I'm not going down that. I'm not. I got to do the Guardians this weekend, so I'll be in Miami with the Guardians. Although you guys are from New York. I grew up a huge Mets fan, huge Mets fan growing up.
I feel bad
go back
for
to
you.
Seaver, Kuzman, Matlack, and John Milner, and then Hernandez and that group. And oh yeah, I was a Mets guy, no doubt.
How about we got Jorge Lopez throwing his glove in the stand?
There you go. How about this kid? How about this kid Gill for the New York Yankees? He's up 3-0. I mean, he has a 1.74 ERA. His WHIP is under 1. I mean, this guy's the best pitcher in baseball. It's crazy.
It's amazing. It really is. And again, that's a whole other topic. But yeah, we'll talk baseball another time. But come on out to Cleveland, man. We'd love to have you.
We'll do it. We'll do it. We're going to do
your show from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
You know what? Absolutely. I'm going to take you up on that offer. Speedy will be in touch with you in the new season. We would love to come out there and talk, obviously be with you and see what you do and what you do best, but also talk basketball, talk baseball, talk sports with you over there in person.
Oh, that'd be great. You got to do a little better than just a white T-shirt, though. How's that?
Listen. It's hot out here, man. It's like 86 degrees. It's dark out here in New York, and I'm sweating my butt off. I'm in a studio, and I'm sweating here.
Well, that's obvious.
Would you rather me wear a wife beater so you could see my tats? What do you want from me here? Hey, Timmy. I mean, I know you got a woman. I don't want to arouse you or anything.
No.
We love you. We love you, Tim. Keep up the good work, man. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Absolutely, man. We're going to make that happen.
We are. Absolutely. Tim Alcorn, the Cavaliers play-by-play voice, fantastic personality, as he always is, and he knows his sports. Let me tell you something. He knows his Cavaliers. He knows his basketball. He's fantastic. He's a great personality. Speedy, you got to keep in touch with him. I would love to go over there and do a show over there. I would love to do it live over there.
Mm-hmm.
It would be fun. It would be fun. We get some Cavaliers to come on our show.
It's good for both of us.
It's good for both of us. That's right.
Finally, one good use of that soundbite.
Why don't we go to a quick break? When we come back, we will get into a lot more as Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson both score high in big contracts. So we'll get into that. And CJ Stroud came out and says he would rather be Eli Manning than Aaron Rodgers in his career. So very interesting. When we come back, we'll get into both of those. But first, our Sports Minute with Tommy Scoops.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
As promised, I am back with another update of the Loudmouth Sports Minute. As you guys know, I am Tommy Scoops to give you guys the rundown. Currently, right now for the report, in the MLB, the Red Sox earlier announced that they will be placing Wilyer Abreu on the injured reserve list. After slipping on the dugout steps Sunday versus Detroit Tigers, Abreu suffered a sprained ankle and will be reevaluated in 10 days. Over in the NFL, new Texans wide receiver Stephon Diggs praises former QB Josh Allen. Diggs, who says he is happy to be in Houston with Stroud, said Allen was an important piece of his career and says the two still have a lot of love for each other. Lastly, Deebo Samuel moves past trade rumors, saying he knows what he signed up for and is focused on improving for his team for next season. Going on to now Scoops of scores. Currently over in the MLB, the Yankees have a 3-0 lead over Minnesota. Cleveland has an 8-5 lead over Kansas City. Pittsburgh has a 1-0 lead over Los Angeles, while Milwaukee has a 1-0 lead over Philadelphia as well. Tampa Bay has a 9-3 lead over Miami, with the Mets having a 5-3 lead over Washington. Baltimore has a 7-0 lead over Toronto. Atlanta has a 6-3 lead over Boston, and Chicago. Both the Chicago teams, Chicago White Sox and the Cubs, are both tied at 0 apiece. That's currently all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to kick it back to the boys for the continuation of the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Willie Whoppers, Speedy! Willie Whoppers! There's barely any hair on. Spewing with nonsense on a bunch of laymen. Don't hear a Wu-Tang Clan with the one. And I'm going to trust the medical profession. You said smothering. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Tim Alcorn, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic as he always is. He had some problems with his phone and his feed, but nevertheless, a great interview. He always is a great interview, Speedy. He is fantastic, and he didn't want to talk about Ohtani, all right? He did not want to give his feedback on Ohtani because he smiled. He knows the answer to that. He knows the answer to that. I think every analyst that we've had on the show believes that Ohtani knew something about it.
I think Dave Benz is the only one who's spoken publicly about it, though.
Yeah, you know what? Because he's also a podcaster, and he's going to speak that on his podcast. Right. Tim Alcorn is not a podcaster. Sure. He's a play-by-play guy, and he obviously doesn't want to throw himself under the bus. He's going to be working with the Guardians this coming week, and he doesn't want to be attacked on social media if he comes out on our show and says some crazy stuff where the fans would probably disagree with him. But nevertheless, we love you, Timmy. Thank you very, very much. In just a few moments, we will be talking to Forever Blueshirts executive editor Jim Cerny. It's the first time on our show. It's his first time on our show, so it is a first time for us to have him on our show as well. So very excited to have him on. But there's a couple of stories I want to get into before we have our very special guest. One of them, ladies and gentlemen, is CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud said on rapper Gilly the Kid's podcast that he would take Eli Manning's career over Aaron Rodgers. Stroud referenced Eli has 2 Super Bowl rings, and while Aaron Rodgers only has 1. Stroud also referenced the Packers' playoff struggles recently and how well they played with Jordan Love this postseason. Eli is 10th all-time passing touchdowns, while Rodgers is 5th. Rodgers has 2,035 more passing yards than Eli, playing 5 less games. Rodgers is 2nd all-time in passing touchdowns and 4th all-time in passing yards in the playoffs. Rodgers is the best in the NFL, best in NFL history in passer rating and touchdowns to interception ratio. Listen, CJ Stroud is a young kid. He's young. And obviously he studies quarterbacks. He's a quarterback right now in the NFL and had one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen a quarterback have. It really was sensational. When you look at some of the great quarterbacks we've seen come out as rookies, and even one of the guys that we speak about all the time, in Trevor Lawrence, some people believe Trevor Lawrence should have had the season CJ Stroud had. And CJ Stroud, I don't know if anybody remembers in that draft when Bryce Young was drafted in front of him, when Carolina moved up and jumped spots to get him and traded a ton away to bring in Bryce Young. A lot of people didn't, some executives didn't think that CJ Stroud was a top 10 pick, that he was going to fall out of the top 10. And when he was picked at number 2, he started to cry. And he said that God has found a way. God has given me the opportunity to go out there and play for the Texans, and I'm going to show everybody what I'm worth. I'm going to show the Texan fans that I was every bit worth what Bryce Young was worth when they traded for him. So, and boy, did he ever do that this past year. He was fantastic. He put up the numbers, and he looked sensational in every single game, except maybe 1 or 2 games, one of them against the New York Jets defense. But he looked really, really good in the playoffs, the first round, knocking off Cleveland the way he did. A very good defense, put up the numbers that he did, and then obviously losing against a very, very good team who eventually went on to win a Super Bowl. So right, it was the
Ravens.
I'm sorry, the Ravens. So went to the AFC title game.
He played well for like 3/4 of that game.
I'm sorry, I forgot. It was Kansas City played Miami. I think it was
Buffalo.
No. was Kansas City play Buffalo or
Miami in the first round? Then
that's
they beat
right.
Buffalo
That's
after
right.
that went back.
That's
Missed
right.
the field
That's
goal.
right. That's right. Yeah, you know more than I do, and then it just shows you how tired I damn well be. But I damn well am. But anyways, it's interesting that he brought up Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why Aaron Rodgers' name is brought up as much as he is. Aaron Rodgers has not been the same player since he's left the Green Bay Packers, and one of the reasons why is because he hasn't been healthy. Now, we'll see what Aaron Rodgers does this year with the talent that the Jets have around him and what they've surrounded him around. But Eli Manning, you say whatever you want about Eli. Eli did win 2 Super Bowls, and I appreciate what Eli Manning did for the NFL. And he was a very quiet guy. He wasn't much of a leader in the locker room. Aaron Rodgers speaks, and he's out there opening his mouth, doing the things that he does on Pat McAfee. It just became something with Eli Manning ever since he's retired. He's working with Peyton. They have Omaha Productions. They're doing so many different things with their podcast and ESPN. He has done wonders offset after leaving football. So I give Eli a lot of credit because what Eli has done as a professional football player is he's just gone out and played the game and put up the numbers and shown people that you don't need to be very outspoken to be a superstar or a great player for an organization and win championships. Even Tom Brady over the years was a guy that spoke a lot and was out there in a public eye because of who he was dating, who he was married to. Eli was never like that. He wasn't even a leader of the Giants. He wore the C, but he wasn't the guy that was stepping out there like Justin Tuck or Michael Strahan. He wasn't that type of guy, and that's what made Eli special. Aaron Rodgers is different. They're 2 different quarterbacks. And CJ Stroud, if you would ask me the type of player that CJ Stroud is, he is kind of like Eli Manning. He's not out and about. He's not really speaking. He doesn't really like to talk to the press. He doesn't really like to cause turmoil over there with the Texans. They had somebody that loved to cause turmoil, and now he's the quarterback right now for the Browns. But to me, I could see why he would choose to be somebody like Eli Manning and have the career Eli Manning had than having a career like Aaron Rodgers. Another thing that really stands out to me to CJ Stroud on that comment is CJ Stroud, his style of game, okay? He is athletic. He is very athletic, but he wants to be that pocket present quarterback. Eli Manning was a pocket quarterback. That's what he was. And a lot of people over the years would say that those pocket quarterbacks are the ones that have long-lasting careers. And Aaron Rodgers, he really became that mobile quarterback. He was one of the known mobile quarterbacks in the last 25 years. He really revolutionized the mobile position as a quarterback, a guy that stepped in and out of the pocket, moved on the run, and he was so accurate. He made those throws. The way CJ throws the ball, he likes to throw the ball. He likes to gun the ball down the field. What did Eli like to do? He liked to do the same. So their styles match up very, very well with one another. Now, do I think that Eli Manning had a better arm than Aaron Rodgers? Has a better arm than Aaron Rodgers? No, I don't. I think Aaron Rodgers has one of the best arms we've ever seen, accurately and talent-wise. But what Eli stood for and what I believe CJ Stroud stands for as a quiet professional that leads by example, that's the way he wants to be thought of. He doesn't want to be thought of as the guy that opens his mouth and causes turmoil with the organization because he knows he's the best player. So that's something that I would look at. I wouldn't look past the fact that he would say, oh, I would rather have No, Eli has 2 championships, and he was a big part of those 2 championships. And Aaron Rodgers, over the years, for him to bring up the whole Jordan Love thing, what did Jordan Love do? He won a playoff series? Is that what he did? He didn't go to the NFC title game. He didn't do that. So I understand what he is saying. I understand that he likes Jordan Love. I'm sure he has a good relationship with Jordan Love. And maybe there's something about Aaron Rodgers he doesn't like. Maybe Aaron Rodgers didn't appreciate him or shake his hand when he lost against the Jets. I have no idea. And maybe that's the hatred that he has for Aaron Rodgers. What I do know is he fits more in that thought. If you're going to compare his game to a quarterback from Eli Manning to Aaron Rodgers, his game fits more on the Eli side than the Aaron Rodgers side.
Yeah, and that's an interesting comparison, too, when you look at the types of quarterbacks that we've seen be successful and also unsuccessful, like longevity-wise, too. we bash Russell Wilson all the time for all the stuff that he did towards the end of his Seahawks career and then into the Broncos. And he was thought of as a quiet guy, and Cam Newton was thought of a loud guy, and his career fell apart as well. Like at the same time, you're going to have eccentric guys like Aaron Rodgers is a louder guy. Patrick Mahomes is the louder guy. Josh Allen is a quieter guy. And they've had different success rates as a whole. And you're looking at Eli Manning in that same light too, where he's that quiet leader in New York, and you kind of need that kind of thing when you're dealing with a difficult media market. And Houston is not New York, but it's a very difficult media market too, with all the dysfunction that the Texans have had, especially with Deshaun
It's
Watson.
a very quiet media market. You don't. It's not New York. It's not L.A. It's not Dallas. Okay.
Right.
The Texans media market, obviously, they haven't been a good organization for the last couple of years. J.J. Watt, obviously leaving, going to Arizona. It hasn't been the same, okay? But now that they have a quarterback, a guy that is the face of the organization, and he stands for something, and to me, he's everything you want as a quarterback. Now, Deshaun Watson, he wasn't a quiet guy. The guy was all about, in front of the cameras. He wanted to be the face of the organization, and he wanted to make sure that he was happy in the back rooms too.
Yeah.
So CJ Stroud's a godly man. He's not going to go out there and brag about how good of a season that he had. He's not that type of player. So that's something I understand what he's trying to say. Do I believe that he thinks that Eli Manning really has had a better season, a better career than Aaron Rodgers? If he believes that, he's blind. Okay. That's not true. Okay. And again, he wants to win more Super Bowls. And obviously Aaron Rodgers has only won one, and he's never won that too. And until Aaron Rodgers brings home another Super Bowl, he's not going to be considered Tom Brady, or he's not going to be considered any of the top 3, top 4 quarterbacks of all time, even though his numbers would show you that he is. So again, CJ Stroud's on his way. I want to see what CJ Stroud does in his sophomore year. He's in a very tough division now. Crazy to say that when what was one of the easiest divisions, one of the open divisions over the last couple of years. Now you got the Tennessee Titans that have gotten better. The Indiana Colts, the Indianapolis Colts, they're better. And even the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to be better this year. You're in a division where it's going to be back and forth. You're going to have to play those teams twice, and it's not going to be so easy. It's not going to be where you're going to have a sneak attack and you're going to just squeak into the playoffs like you did this year. Jacksonville gave it away when Jacksonville looked like they were going to pull away in the division. And then the last 3-4 games of the season, they completely fell off, and it was a complete debacle. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And if the Indianapolis Colts stay healthy and Richardson stays healthy, it's going to be very, very hard in that division. He might not be the best quarterback in that division. It's crazy to say that with the talent that they have. And this is a division that has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 young quarterbacks that have a chance to be successful moving forward.
Remember, Trevor Lawrence also had a gruesome ankle injury at the end of the year, too. And he tried to play through it. And I think the Jacksonville won 1 game, but they also threw away games they should have won, too. And they kind of did the reverse of what they did last year, where they were 4-7, and they rallied back to win the division against the Titans. And the Titans spoiled them. And obviously the Texans won the division at that time. So you look at that kind of thing just being very streaky still. As far as CJ Stroud himself, it'll be an interesting step to see if he could do it the second year with much more expectations. We were talking about that when they made the Stephon Diggs trade, where that's going to be a whole new step in leadership for him as well. And Eli Manning did that with Odell Beckham, a similarly diva wide receiver that you would call it. And Stephon Diggs is kind of thought of in that same light now. Will he be able to manage that? It's going to be a big question for his growth as a whole as well, because Eli Manning was very good at managing those types of guys. And so is Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams, definitely, he loves to speak a lot, and he didn't speak as much as in Green Bay as he much as now with the Raiders.
Somebody that's interesting that is an Eli Manning guy, a Giants guy, and that's Fish. And I want to know your opinion to the whole CJ Stroud thing, because you hear CJ Stroud come out with this, and some people think that he's taking shots at Aaron Rodgers. I disagree. I think that when he looks at both of these quarterbacks and he wants to compare his game to one or the other, I think it's more comparable to an Eli Manning than an Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a very athletic guy that likes to step outside of the pocket and make those throws. I think CJ Stroud, his game and his ability is that strong arm that he has, and he likes to stand in the pocket and make those strong throws. What are your thoughts to what CJ Stroud said on both those guys' careers and comparing his game to their game?
Well, as of right now, you have to agree with Eli because with CJ Stroud about Eli, because he won 1 more Super Bowl and was Super Bowl MVP both times. I think that's what he wants. He doesn't want 1 championship. He's a young quarterback. He thinks he's going to win, like LeBron. Remember LeBron Going to Miami, not 2, not 3, not 4. You know, obviously that's not what happened, but we know LeBron won multiple championships and he's going down as probably the second greatest basketball player of all time. And CJ Stroud wants that kind of a career. Aaron Rodgers only has done that once. Now he's set up pretty nicely this year, Jets fans, you know, to do that. But
that
the key
mean
is,
anything, as you know. I mean, the Jets could be set up any way they want, and somebody goes down and the season's over. As we know, Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays, they fall and they're done, and they have Zach Wilson. But Tyrod Taylor is a good consolation prize. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to jinx him because he went down for the Giants too with his rib injury. So knowing the Jets as a Jet guy, I'm not going to jinx them. I want to pray that they stay healthy. That's just my opinion.
yeah, the skill set is there, you know, for Stroud. Stroud likes to hit over the middle on the slants. I tried to show some highlights of him going over the middle, intermediate, over the middle deep, going over to the sideline, doing some corner routes to the right. He loves Nico Collins. Now, we talked about it about a month ago when Diggs went over there. Nico Collins is his guy. Is Diggs going to be able to handle not being the guy, the number one target on a team? We don't know about that. That is a big X factor that they're gambling with this year. They know they can get out of it after the year, but that is something they're trying to do. Can Diggs be this multiplying factor instead of, kind of hurting the team?
Who does Nico Collins remind you of as if you could compare him to one of those wide receivers that play with Eli Manning? You know who I think? Plaxico Borges. That's the type. Big, long, strong, goes up there and gets the ball. Plaxico Borges reminds me a lot. Well, Nico Collins reminds me of a Plaxico Borges. You know who reminds me of Dell? Hakeem Nicks, a guy that everybody keeps talking about Odell Beckham, but Odell Beckham never won. Hakeem Nicks did win. And Mario Manningham, I don't know who you compare Mario Manningham to.
Whoever the fourth receiver on the Texas depth chart is.
Maybe Mario Manningham is Diggs. You know, he's not as good as Diggs, obviously.
Not nearly as good.
No, not nearly. It's not even close, but their mouths are just as big. I mean, Mario Manningham got himself into trouble when he played for the Giants because he opened his big mouth over, during the season. And same thing with Stephon Diggs. Maybe the closest thing they have to each other is their mouths, but not their talent. But I mean, I would agree with you. I want to see what Stephon Diggs is going to do with these two wide receivers, Dell 100% and Nico Collins. But here's the thing. My question to you is back to what he was trying to say. Do you think he was trying to throw Aaron Rodgers under the bus? Or is he trying to make a point here and say, you know what? I don't think it has anything to do with the champion. He brought up the championships. I just think that if he looks and he compares his game to one or the other, it's more comparable to Eli Manning than Aaron Rodgers. He's nothing like Aaron Rodgers. He really isn't. Aaron likes to throw on the run. CJ Stroud's not Patrick Mahomes. That's not his game. His game is to stand in the pocket and make a strong throw. And he likes to take his 5, 6, 7 steps back and makes his throw. So that's the difference. I look at both those guys. It makes a lot more sense on why he's comparing his game and wants to be more like an Eli Manning, who, by the way, stays healthy. Aaron Rodgers doesn't.
Yeah, people forget that about Eli. Eli had the Iron Man streak for such a long time. And when he was younger as a quarterback, he wasn't as immobile as we remember him. He was never mobile. Stroud's definitely more mobile than he is.
Of course, yes.
Of course. But
he's not.
The skill set is similar.
He's not a mobile quarterback.
No, he's not.
When you look at his game, I mean, Speedy, you would know, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Fish. If you look at what he has done this past year in his rookie season, would you consider him a mobile quarterback?
No, that was actually one of the things I was down on him as a prospect. I didn't think he was like a bust, like a lot of people were saying, but I was down on him compared to others because he didn't really throw on the run very well.
No, he's not that kind of quarterback. He's more of a pocket present quarterback. And when you compare, and he long-lasting careers, if you ask any guy, what would you rather? A mobile quarterback, which has changed the game, and that's what they are, or a pocket present quarterback that's going to stand in the pocket, take the abuse, but he's going to make every single throw. And most GMs or most general managers will tell you, I want a pocket present quarterback because if he can stand in the pocket and make those throws, we're going to win. So that's why he wants to compare his game to Eli Manning, because that's what he was.
And I'll wrap this up quick because I know we got Jim Cerny waiting to come on. We've got the thing about him is, as a pocket quarterback, since you're not running, you have to be very deceptive different ways. And what he does, and I showed one clip of it, is he's faking a handoff and then throwing the slant. It's kind of an RPO, kind of not. But what he does is very subtle. He turns his shoulders. He really sells it in a way not every quarterback does. He's very crafty at the nuances of the game, and he's only going into his second year. That is really, really encouraging. That's just a guy who knows how to play football. If he was taking shots at Rodgers, he's not going to go after Rodgers' football acumen. There's about 5,000 different things you could take shots at Aaron Rodgers for. It's not about being a bad quarterback. That's the last thing you're going to say about him. You could talk about ayahuasca in the darkness. As you know, like, why would you talk about his football? He's one of the greatest players of all time. He just hasn't won as many titles as Eli.
No, he hasn't. And again, that it takes a team to win championships. Everybody forgets that. Everybody gives Tom Brady all the credit. Oh, he won all these titles. It wasn't just Tom Brady winning 7 titles. It took a team to win those titles. He was a big part of those teams, but you need all 53 guys to play their game to win. So it's a different thing. But I think it's very interesting that he mentioned that. And he was on Gilly the Kid. And by the way, Gilly the Kid, I used to love him as a rapper, and his podcast is booming right now. He's getting all these different guys. He's worked with Mike Tyson. They've worked together on that show. So his podcast is booming right now. And to get somebody like CJ Stroud to actually speak about this and compare his game to one or the other. And again, Aaron Rodgers, that's just another tool that he's going to have in the shed. I don't think he's matched up against the Texans this year, but if they meet in the playoffs, I mean, that could be something on his board. Is say, oh, you want to be Eli, huh? I'll show you what Eli can't do, So that's just something that he can use. But Aaron Rodgers don't need that. So it's just about the kid's special. I think he's going to be fun to watch. I just think this is his sophomore year. There's a lot of pressure on him. And now you add Stephon Diggs. You're adding another big name in that locker room that doesn't really like to be second best. So it's going to be easy. It's going to be interesting to see how CJ Stroud is going to work this with guys like Nico Collins and Dell and now Diggs, how he's going to work all 3 of these guys in and work the running game in, which, by the way, added a nice running back as well this offseason. So it's going to be fun to watch. I'm interested to see what the Texans are going to do. I think they're going to be fun to watch. That's all I'm going to say about that. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking Forever Blueshirts executive editor for the first time on the Sports Loudmouth, Jim Cerny. But first, our Sports Minute with Tommy Scoops.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
You guys already know what time it is. The Loudmouth Sports Minute, top of the hour with Tommy Scoops. So getting straight into it. Over in college sports, UConn women's coach Gino Urema gets a 5-year extension. Urema, who has been with the team since 1985 and won 11 national titles, will remain in UConn for $18 million. Over in the NFL, Cortland Sutton is expected to attend the mandatory minicamp after missing offseason activities due to contract rumors. Broncos head coach Sean Payton expects Sutton to be at minicamp on June 11th. Lastly, the Titans are signing their 7th-round draft pick, defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, meaning that the Titans have officially signed their entire draft class under contract. Now it's going to be time for Scoops' scores. We're currently, right now, the Yankees have a 3-1 lead over Minnesota. Pittsburgh still has a 1-0 lead over Los Angeles. Right now, Tampa still has a 9-5 lead over over Miami, with Atlanta having a 7-3 lead over Boston. Chicago has a 5-0 lead over the Cubs, with Detroit having a 2-0 lead over Texas. Houston has a 2-1 lead over St. Louis, and Cincinnati has a 1-0 lead over Colorado. It's currently all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to kick it back to the boys for their next guest on the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Men in black. I'm not licking anyone. Do you bend the meat? Shave the ass. Shave the ass. It's good for both. Good for me, good for you. How thick do you like the beef?
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, the Speedster, Speedy Petey. That was Speedy Petey's soundboard, and a little bit of a little bit of touch of me, a little salt and pepper.
It's good
Speedy.
for both.
It's good for both of us. Speedy, is it good for you?
I don't know.
Salt and pepper. Which one do you like?
I prefer salt.
I prefer pepper. No, actually, I like salt. I'd rather a heart attack. You know, I mean, pepper. I would. Anyways, remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Check out our morning show with Brian Snow, as always, every single morning at 6. What is it, 6 o'clock in the morning?
6 in the morning. He's done it Tuesdays and Thursdays pretty consistently.
Yes. So we obviously have Brian Snow. We have the Wise Guys coming back in the near future. We have Game On and many other shows, our betting show. So stay tuned, listen to us, and listen to all our local, check out our local listings on our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a Ranger fan. I know there's a lot of Ranger fans out there that are probably pissing in their pants or just a little upset for the elimination after being knocked off by the Florida Panthers. But we had a guy, one of our guys who is hiding from coming on our show, one of your pals, Speedy. You know, I'm talking
Mr. Scultori.
Mr. Scultori. So you know what he does? He gives us something even better. We are now talking to Forever Blueshirts executive editor, Jim Cerny. Jim, what's up, buddy?
What's up, brothers? How are you?
We're good, man. Obviously, you're Anthony's boy.
Look at this. That's good stuff, huh?
Remember what year that was?
Hey. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah, that's when I was working with the Rangers. When I was running their website there, the main photo. We were doing some sort of stand-up that actually might have been during the Stanley Cup final of 2014 after the morning skate.
You know, it's so funny because Anthony Scultori, he's been on our show quite a few times. He hasn't been on our show for over a year and a half. Okay?
I know.
He's been ducking and weaving me, okay? This is a man. I love Anthony, but everybody knows on this show I'm an Islander fan. I know the Islanders are not that good, but the other team that I've rooted for over the years were the Florida Panthers. And I picked Florida to go all the way to the Stanley Cup and win the Stanley Cup and beat the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals, as all the Ranger fans thought, hey, you know what? The way Shesterkin is playing, we're going all the way this year. And we've seen Ranger goaltenders over the years, Henrik Lundqvist, Mike Richter, John Van Beesbrook, Eddie Jockerman. We've seen so many good Ranger goalies, and just the Rangers defense falls apart in big games. We've seen this many, many times. What were your thoughts going into this series? Did you really think that the Rangers had a chance against the Florida Panthers?
Did I think they had a chance? I did. Listen, that's a good team. And when they dictate, kind of how the game's played, they're an even better team. But Florida Panthers absolutely dictated pretty much every single period of this series, how it was played. They played it on their terms this entire series. So as it was moving along, even when the Rangers were up 2-1, I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, unless there's some sort of, as Emily Kaplan said when I was talking with her the other day, unless there's some sort of crazy juju going on here, the Rangers aren't winning this series. They were getting run out of the building for a lot of part of the, for big stretches of this series. And, listen, highway robbery in game 3 with Shesterkin and stealing that one off, they score off Wenberg's chest and into the net and win in overtime. But the bottom line is, you ask a simple question. Did I think that they could win this going into the series? And the answer was yes. I absolutely thought they could. Did I think they would? I thought it was going to be a string of 1-goal games. And the way things were going for them, the way they were winning overtime games, and as Emily said, had a little bit of that juju going, I thought they had a chance for sure. And I really believed that they would have the best player in the series, and they did, in Igor Shesterkin. However, he did not get a lot of help. So even if you have the best player, you may not have the best team. And they were not the best team in that series.
Yeah, so I want to ask about the defensive woes, especially to Trouba with all the penalties. I think 11 is the most I've ever seen that isn't like a goon, a fighter type that I've seen. Then you had Fox, who's kind of playing hurt. So the defensive, do you think they should have done maybe something to adjust it? Maybe something like Zach Jones, change the lines around? What are your thoughts on that?
So here's the thing. They did switch defense pairings. They flip-flopped the second and third pairings as the series went along. I think Peter Laviolette saw, and they did it throughout the playoffs too. They weren't always consistent. The only consistent pair was Fox and Lindgren. Laviolette, I think, saw Trouba was struggling. He was getting pinned in his own zone. He was getting beaten wide. What ultimately ended up being the winning goal of the series. Trouba got beat to the net by Tarasenko. That happened over and over and over again. Now, we do find out today that he's it wasn't 100%. A lot of guys aren't 100% in the playoffs. He's talking about how he lost a chunk of his ankle back in March. Yeah. Listen, they're all legitimate. They're all legitimate excuses. And listen, Florida would be the first team to say, hey, yeah, who cares? We didn't play last year. We didn't have Aaron Ekblad, and we got to the final. Imagine if we had Aaron Ekblad, where we would have been. So, there are no excuses here. Trouba did not play well. Fox clearly was hampered throughout the playoffs. He said he got better as the playoffs went along after the Game 4 knee-on-knee from Nick Jensen in the first round. But, he clearly wasn't 100%. But you know what? He was playing 24 minutes a night. Nobody played more minutes than him. So he was good enough to be out there. And that's what Fox said. I was good enough to be out there. I was good enough to put the uniform on. I was good enough to play 24 minutes a night. I just wasn't good enough. And he wasn't. And that runs through the entire lineup of their top players. They just weren't good enough. You're focusing on the defense, but where was Artemi Panarin? Ghost. Mika Zibanejad absolutely outplayed at every turn at both ends of the ice by Sasha Barkov. And if it wasn't Barkov outplaying him, it was Anton Lindell, baby Barkov, that outplayed him. And then Chris Kreider. I almost understand Panarin and Zibanejad because we've seen this kind of act before in the playoffs. Maybe they're not built for the real tough playoff games. But Chris Kreider, he's your biggest, strongest, fastest, most athletic guy in that lineup. And where was he? Where was he? He wasn't getting to the net, wasn't getting those deflections, wasn't winning puck battles, wasn't cycling the puck in the offensive zone. I mean, yes, from time to time he did, but consistently, did he? No. That's the guy. That's the guy that if I'm a Ranger fan, that's the one that blows my mind because he was physically built for this series.
We are talking to Forever Blueshirts executive editor Jim Cerny. First time on our show. We're very happy to have him on. Thank you to Anthony Scoltori for letting us have him on the show, even though he's hiding behind the scenes as he always is, because he's afraid of moi. Okay, I'm just speaking the truth. There's a player that actually did very well in the playoffs. He had a better season this year because of Peter Laviolette, and I think Peter Laviolette was definitely one of the coaches of the year. He was fantastic for the New York Rangers, winning the President Trophy. Was Alexis Lafreniere, who was fantastic throughout the playoffs. He had 28 goals this year, 29 assists for 57 points. He is still fairly young. Do I think he is worth the #1 pick so far of what I've seen as a player? No, but we'll see. I mean, next year will be his second year with Peter Laviolette. I expect him to be even better. And he could be the future captain of this team. I do believe that. But what stood out to me in the playoffs is this guy was not afraid of it. He was there. He played hard. He was in front of the nets. He was getting open pucks. He was moving, skating, cycling, everything that you were saying Chris Kreider wasn't doing. This guy was doing it. So what are your thoughts to Alexis Lafreniere and what he's done the last 2 years in the playoffs?
Yeah, so here's the thing with Lafreniere. I really had my doubts on him. I said, what's going on with this guy? He was not only the #1 overall pick, but he was the consensus #1 overall pick, right? That year, no doubt, you're hitting the home run, you're hitting the grand slam because you're getting Alexis Lafreniere. But at the end of the day, and listen, I've covered the NHL for 30 years. I know, and I've seen it enough times to know, sometimes it takes time. Yes, he was an 18-year-old boy, but it's deceptive because he was so dominant, so big and strong playing against boys. in junior hockey, right? But you get to the NHL, and even though you might be that big guy, you look like a man, you're not. Mentally, physically, you're not. And he wasn't. And it took him time. It took him a few years here. Now, granted, Laviolette deserves a lot of credit because I think he saw in Lafreniere the player that we ended up seeing this season. He saw it. He's got to be a top 6 guy, not a third line guy. Top 6. Let's put him with Panarin. Let's put him with our best. Let's switch him from the left side to the right side. Gallant was scared to death of doing that. Thought Lafreniere wouldn't go for it, whatever. And Lafreniere took to it. Now, granted, listen, you and I would pick up a few points playing with Artemi Panarin too on a regular basis. But Lafreniere not only picked up those points, but he showed that he could play with an elite level talent. And I've had coaches tell me so many times it is underrated. That's an underrated skill that you can play with one of the best players in the game. And that's what Lafreniere did. His game raised not only because he played with Panarin and he benefited from Panarin, but he showed he can play with him. 28 goals this season, almost got to 60 points. And then in the playoffs, he was a difference maker. Look at those 2 goals he scored, those 2 breakaway goals against Bobrovsky. Those might have been the 2 prettiest goals of the entire series for either team, right? Because there wasn't a lot of, great breakaway goals and stuff like that. He had 2 of them. So we talk about his size and strength, and you're right on the mark, Errol, when you were talking about that and winning puck battles and getting to the net. He did that really well, really consistently. But what else can he? He can also explode on you. And that's what he did with those 2 breakaway goals. It was a breakout season for him. And, and he's just a kid. What is he, 22 years old?
Yep.
He's just scratching the surface right now. And yeah, and I was at fault for this too. And went against all the things coaches have told me over the years, reminding me they're kids. Not everybody's going to get it right away. Jack Hughes at 18 wasn't Jack Hughes now at 2021, right? Sometimes it takes some time. Not everybody's Connor McDavid or Mario Lemieux in his first season or what have you. But the kid's figuring it out. I think he's going to be a star. And you even threw the captaincy out there down the road. He seems to be that type guy that can seize that. But he's in a good situation that he doesn't have to have that forced on him yet. Sometimes you see these guys are captains at 18, 19. You're like, well, what are you doing?
But Trouba could be gone next year. They could move Trouba. So who's going to be the captain? Chris Kreider already came out and said he was offered the C. He didn't take it. He said, give it to Trouba. So now Trouba's gone. Who gets the C? Are you going to trust Mika Zibanejad? I don't know if he's there. They're going to have to decide what they're going to do with Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. I love Mika, but both these guys, they don't play in the playoffs. And you can't keep these guys on your cap if they can't produce in the playoffs. I'm sorry. They're going to have to decide what they're going to do with one or the other. Do they keep Panarin? Do they keep Zibanejad? Or do they move one of them and try to get back some pieces that can help them win in the near future?
All right. So that's a 2-part question. We'll start with the captaincy first. Trouba could be moved this offseason. He still has 2 years, $8 million a year. They need to clear some cap, especially if they're going to sign Igor Shesterkin to the contract extension. And it's going to be a big money contract extension. I think you're starting at 10 a year. And I think it's going to be more than that. He's going to get more than Bobrovsky got. So you got to clear some room there. You also, Lafreniere is also due, or I shouldn't say due. He's eligible for a contract extension too after July 1. Not sure they'll go down that road just yet. But they need cap room. Trouba, they might have to eat some salary there. They might have to throw in a draft pick as kind of an incentive to deal him. He's 30, has mileage on him by the physical way that he plays, and that's a big cap hit. So if they trade him, here's what I would say. I think if the thinking is that at one point Lafreniere is going to be our captain, and that's just for argument's sake. We don't know Chris Jury thinks that or Peter Laviolette thinks that. But let's say that's what they think. They may just say, you know what? We're going to go back to what we did before Trouba was captain. We're going to have a season of 5 alternates. 5 guys wearing the A. And now Lafreniere will get a letter.
Mm.
Just like Fox has a letter, so, younger guys, we'll give him a letter. Let's see how he handles it. Let's see if he's ready to take that next step and go without the C this year. They did it before. So I could see them doing it again if Trouba got dealt. So that's one. The second part is the really difficult part of the equation. You can't move Panarin or Zibanejad. They both have no trade clauses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Both of them. So neither one's going anywhere. So Zibanejad and Panarin's here. Now, could you? I mean, it's not going to happen. But could you?
For the Rangers?
Could you? Yeah. If you go up to them and say, "Hey, listen, it's not working out. Would you waive your no clause?" Well, if they don't, and Panarin loves New York, this is the only place he wanted to play when he was a free agent. You open up a massive can of worms. And at the end of the day, take a deep breath. Panarin did have 120 points this season and scored 49 goals. You can argue Zibanejad didn't have the greatest regular season, and maybe Ranger fans should have been prepared for this playoff, right? Because he had some sketchy moments in this regular season. He was not as good as he was last year or even the year before. But Panarin, listen, he was a Hart Trophy candidate. He was a top 5, MVP candidate in the NHL. But it's all a moot point because you can't trade either guy. So who makes big money, or what kind of impact on a trade can you make? Well, Trouba has a 15-team no trade. So that's 16 teams that, you possibly could trade him to. Ditto for Kreider. Now that, I don't know that they would do that. That they would trade Kreider. Because he's so embedded as a Ranger. It's, I don't see it. But from a hockey point of view, I don't disagree.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Didn't he grow up a Boston Bruins fan? So maybe
he's from Boston. Yeah.
So maybe if you could trade with Boston, maybe you can get Marchand or somebody like that. Maybe Boston's looking to move somebody, a veteran player too, and they don't think they can win with some of the players that they have, and they move one of their veteran players for a veteran player. I could see that. I think he'd be happy going to Boston, going back to his hometown.
Well, now here's the thing. They don't really have to care if he's happy or not because, he's got his 15 teams he can't be traded to, but he could be traded to the other 16. So, that wouldn't matter. Boston's not trading Marchand. I mean, he's their captain.
I'm just saying,
what I mean. Yeah. Sure. But those are their two like really high level, high ticket money guys to clear cap and maybe give a jolt where you shake up the roster a little bit and maybe, you bring in, it's hard to say. It's like when Florida traded Huberdeau to get Kachuk, and that totally changed the dynamic.
It's crazy how you mentioned that because I was talking to a Ranger fan, Josh Silverberg, and he said what changed the dynamic of the Florida Panthers becoming a Stanley Cup team was when they traded for Matthew Tkachuk. It changed everything for them. They had the talent, but Matthew kind of gave them that mean stride and that mean type of player that could skate, that could score, and that could take over games when need be. I think maybe that's what the Rangers need. They need a playoff guy that's going to show up every single playoff, no matter what, great season or no great season. He's going to go into the playoffs. Listen, I'll look at the past in the 90s. When you look at guys like Tony Amonte was a decent player in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he was a different beast. Chris Chelios was a great regular season player, but when he went into the playoffs, he was a different player. Phil Coffey, remember Phil Coffey? He was a great regular season defenseman, but in the playoffs with Edmonton and all the teams that he played with Detroit, he was a different player. These guys, for some reason, Mark Messier, he was a great regular season player, but in the playoffs, he was a different beast. He was a different player. You need to find those players. There are players in the league that can do that. How about this? Tkachuk, not Matthew Tkachuk, but Brady Tkachuk over there in Ottawa. He looks like he's not happy over there. He's a great talent. Maybe if you put some youngsters, you got these two young superstars that Everybody believes they're going to be. They're farm system guys. You don't know what they're going to be in the NHL. Maybe you trade both those pieces and maybe a player, maybe a Chris Kreider, and then you land somebody like him. I mean, that could change everything for the Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy with bite to his game. He's, obviously he's very similar to his brother.
Oh, yeah.
And can play. That's the thing. It's not just, getting a guy with bite. It's a guy that can play. It's a highly skilled player. That's what makes Matthews so great. And Brady as well. So yeah, I mean that's an intriguing.
Got to give a lot back for him. Ottawa's just not going to give him away. He's their best player. And I think he's their captain.
He's their captain.
Yeah. So to get somebody like that, you're going to have to give away those two young players that everybody keeps saying they don't want to trade. They don't want to trade. If Chris Drury wants to win next year, you bring in a Brady Tkachuk. That tells the Ranger fans you want to win. And he's still young. Brady Tkachuk is 23 years old, 24. He's a baby. You have a chance to put him with Panarin or put him with one of those guys, Lafreniere on both sides. I mean, you're talking about a dominant player on a very young line. So if I were the Rangers, that's where I look.
Yeah, it's interesting. They Lafreniere may turn into that guy that we're talking about, right? They may have him already. They may have that guy there already. But I agree. They need to find somebody else. It might have to be on the back end. Like that guy with some snarl on the back end that is also capable of getting the puck up and out. Did they get pinned in their own zone? And they were so good in the regular season at, boom, 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 tape out. We're in the neutral zone, get into, we're on our way. And they couldn't do it against Florida. They could not do it against Florida. They couldn't get that first pass to the next stick and get the puck out of the zone. They could not do it. And they could be that the guys were just getting worn down. Could be that Fox was he was hurt, playing hurt, but they couldn't do it, and that's a big problem. So it started from their back end on up, and certainly the forwards not holding up. The big rugged Panther forwards as well. I'll give you a guy who I think is an intriguing guy that could be on the trade market. And I know Chris Drury was asked about him at the trade deadline and said, no, we're not dealing this guy. We believe in this guy. And it's a similar story as Lafreniere up until this year is Capo Caco. This is me. I just don't see it. I know the analytics typically are great on him. Puck possession, wins battles, and all that. What I see is a big dude, big, strong guy with a lot of skill. He's got a lot of skill that controls the puck and just spins around in the corner, behind the net, in the corner, behind the net. Never comes out in front and shoots the darn thing, right?
He reminds me of, right? Alexei Kovalov, a guy that's highly skilled, who didn't like to shoot the puck, liked to be fancy with it. And just can never be a finisher. He was never a finisher for the New York Rangers. Rangers had to give up. We had Neil Smith on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I've talked to Neil on and off air, and I brought up Alexei Kovalov, and he said Kovalov was one of the most skilled players he's ever seen in his history. Problem with Alexei is for some reason he just didn't shoot the puck. Matthew Barzal is another one. Unbelievable skater. One of the greatest skaters I've ever seen. Personally, I was a hockey player, played many, many years. I was a pretty good player. And people said my skill of skating, the way I skate, I was very graceful. When I watched Barzal, I was never as close of a skater this kid is. I mean, when when he's on the ice because he's so graceful, he's so quick and so fast. That's the way Kovalov was, but he could never finish. Panarin's a finisher. He's a great skater and he's a finisher. He just can't finish in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you another one. Sam Reinhart. He's a free agent. He's a
massive
guy that, and I think that I don't know if the Panthers be able to bring him back. He's going to be asking for a lot of money. There are teams out there that need goal scoring. One of them, the Islanders. I could see. I don't know if they're going to be able to move space to bring in a player like that, but he is like that perfect piece that you could put with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal, and really have a player that can finish. They don't have a finisher, and that guy's a finisher.
He's a finisher, right? And you talk about a guy that's just made himself a hunk of change and is walkier, right? 57 goals. What was it? 27 on the power play. And he continued in the playoffs. He had that little lull there in the playoffs, but, then turned it up again, in the conference final. And you know what? Here's a guy gets to the dirty areas too. He's not a massive big guy, but he gets to the dirty areas and where you score goals, especially this time of year and everything. A couple of those power play goals where he came out with the puck out of the corner where he went get the puck, he spun Trouba around like a top, and came to the net and chipped it over Shesterkin. There's some guys out there in free agency. Jake
One
Gensel,
player,
another
one
guy. You talk about the swing and a miss that the Rangers may have made, and at the time, I said, "Listen, Jack Roslovic is a third line player on a good team, on a championship team. He's a third line player, and they forced him up onto the top line, thinking that his speed would just be good with Zibanejad and Kreider. But at the end of the day, he's Jack Roslovic. He's Jack Roslovic, talented, but you talk about guys that don't, he doesn't shoot it either. Good speed. And that was a case. And you talked before about trading Othman or trading Gabe Perreault or trading their first round pick this year, which is the 30th overall pick. It was never going to be a high pick, but Drury clung to that first round pick. And I get it. I get about always thinking ahead and building the future. But if that's what stood between you and maybe getting a Jake Gensel, and we don't know, at the end of the day, you don't know.
They had Gensel, they beat the Florida Panthers.
It would have been a heck of a lot easier because he knows how to score in the playoffs.
If they had Jake Gensel, they beat the Florida Panthers. Guarantee it.
I don't know about guaranteed, but
I guarantee
it would have helped.
Look what he did with Carolina when he went over there. I mean, I thought he was the missing piece. They would not. Sometimes I understand what the Rangers are trying to do. I've known Chris. I played hockey with him. I played baseball with him. I know him. I know his personality. He's a very stubborn guy. He thinks that, these guys, they're going to come like Perreault and all these other guys are going to come into the NHL, Gabe Perreault, and they're going to be superstars. You don't know. And you don't want to trade those pieces, but you had a chance to win a Stanley Cup this year. You haven't won since 1994, and you had a chance to win this year. This might have been your best chance to go. You make that trade. If you think that trade is the meaning of winning a Stanley Cup or not, you make the trade, you take a chance, because then you become a god. You become a god. And now the Rangers are going back to the drawing board now this offseason, because as good as the season they had and what Shesterkin did this year, fantastic. We've also seen in the beginning of the season, Shesterkin was not Shesterkin. Okay. We don't know. Look at Sorokin. Sorokin had a bad year this year. This guy was one of the top 3 goalies in the league, one of the elite goalies in the league. And then this year, whatever happened, his training, whatever defense, whatever it was, he didn't have the season he had the year before. So now you're going to the season. Well, is he a top 5 goaltender? Come on, guys, stop it. He is a top 5 goalie, but nevertheless, he didn't have that season. You can't when you have an opportunity to get over the hump, and all you need is that one guy to get you over the hump, you make that trade.
So here's what I think happened. I think it's 2 things. I think he's very worried about trading those first round picks and trading them in multiple years. I think that worries him. It's just his makeup about his belief in building for the future and everything. But I think what maybe hamstrung him at this deadline was the fact that they went all in for Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko the year before, and they still lost in the first round.
They were washed out. Besides,
there are circumstances to that. Like, first of all, Gerard Gallant getting absolutely outcoached in 7 games there by Lindy Ruff. But, listen, you could argue it any way you want to. Tarasenko was actually one of their better players in that series.
Yes, he was.
And Kane was hurt. He's going on his way to the surgery. But I really believe that held him back here at the deadline. And he said, you know what? Look what we did in 2022. We built around the edges. We got guys that fit. They fit in our room. And, we didn't upset the apple cart. And, hey, we made it to the Eastern Conference Final. So he tried the same path, right? With Wenberg and it's mainly Roslovic. Wenberg's Wenberg. He's a third line center. You knew he's not an offensive player. You know he's good defensively, kills penalties, is what he is. But he's your third line center filling the role for Hedl. While Hedl was out, it was the Roslovic not getting the right wing again for Kreider and Zibanejad. And here's the thing. I mean, bring the psychologists in, whatever you got to do. You got to figure out, why can't people play right wing with Kreider and Zibanejad? Cycle through the people that have played right wing with those guys, and it just never seems to take at 5-on-5. It's crazy. And certainly Roslovic wasn't the answer. Obviously, if they got Gensel, they would have been in better shape. Again, Florida was so good in that series. I'm not sure that, the one guy would have made the difference, but I certainly would have trusted Jake Gensel. That he is a big time playoff performer and Stanley Cup champion. That would have been the guy.
He's a free agent.
He would have been. Well, that's it. But it's going to cost a lot of money.
That's going to cost.
Do that. So then, going back to your points from before, then you got to start. How do we move Trouba? How do we move Kreider? We got to open up the money. See if we can bring Jake Gensel in.
It's going to be very, very interesting for the Rangers, including the New York Islanders, as Lou Lamoriello has make me sick. I mean, seriously, watching Lou Lamoriello and what he has done over the last couple of years just makes me want to throw up. I do not want to see Lou trade away any more first-round draft picks, okay? This team needs to rebuild. I think they're old. I think they have a goalie. There's no question that they do. They got two. I think they have three. Noah Dobson special. We saw him this year. He really broke out. I don't know how he doesn't make the All-Star team. Barzell, we know what he is. If they could put another winger beside him and Bo Horvat, but everybody else, get rid of them. They're just garbage. And this team needs to rebuild from the bottom to the top. It's hard to watch a team that sneaks into the playoffs and hurts their chances of getting a top 10 pick. It really does. It's very Islander-like. So
here's the thing before we call it a night here is two things, since we're talking Islanders. One, worst place in all of sports to be is stuck in the middle. And they are stuck in the middle. They're not good in it. They're not a serious Stanley Cup contender, though, obviously if Sorokin just played out of his mind for 2 months, maybe, but likely not. They're not a Stanley Cup contender, but they're not a crappy lottery team either. They're stuck in the middle, and Lou just keeps trying to add to it. Let's run it back. Well, one more time. Brock and Anders and
garbage. It's garbage what he's adding on to this team. How do you give Pierre Engvall a 7-year, $3 million? What are you, an idiot? I saw Lou Lamoriello last year. I saw him at an event, and I walked up to Lou. Nobody even knew it was Lou Lamoriello, and I said, Lou, you're going to sign Sorokin, right? He's like, he's one of the best goalies in the league. Of course I am. I said, well, why did you make that trade for Pierre Engvall? He says, he's fast. And he's like, he doesn't put the puck in the net, Lou. We need guys that can put the puck in the net. He's like, yeah, but he's an affordable player that we could put on the second or third. If you put Pierre Engvall on the second line and he's a top 6 player, you must be bad. And that's what I said to him. I said, you must be bad. You must be thinking that this team is really that bad. So, and he looked at me and he smiled at me and says, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, I'm your worst enemy." And he started laughing. So he says, "I'm not going to speak to you anymore if you're going to write about this."
So I'll leave you with this: is that back in the day when they had a different owner every year there for a stretch, and Mike Bilberry was the GM. I was the Islanders broadcaster. I broadcasted for them on radio.
Mike scouted me.
So I was there. I was there. And as much as you can blow your top over Lou and whatever he does and say, it's so Islanders and Lou this, and we're stuck in the middle. At least you were in the middle, because every year under Mike, until finally when it turned around, coincidentally with Laviolette and Yashin and Pekka and all that.
Yeah.
That first group of years with Milbury, I mean, literally, we'd be in mid-November and it was over.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for making me so upset even more watching a team that by the way, I grew up a Ranger fan and I told this to Neil Smith and I said, "You're the one that turned me." And he said, "What did I do to you?" I said, "You traded Van Beesbrook." And I said, "That was my favorite player. You traded." He's like, "Well, I wanted to tell you an inside story about that. Beezer was one of my favorite players, and I wanted to make sure that he was going to get a starting job. I traded him to Vancouver because I knew they had Kurt McLean, and they were going to move him into the expansion draft. He was going to be the #1 pick in the expansion draft by the Florida Panthers. Yep. And he said, I wanted to make sure that he had a starting job for the future. And he said, I didn't want to send him to a team where he was going to back up somebody until somebody got hurt. He says, I tried to make sure that he was in position to get another job. So he says, it's a shame that you're not a Ranger fan. He's like, but you know what? You're not a Ranger guy anymore either, Neil. So it doesn't really matter. You go to Islander games more than you do the Ranger games. So he says, well, the Rangers don't invite me. I was like, well, you're an Islander guy then.
Yeah. Well, listen, he was more recently general manager of the Islanders than he was the Rangers. So.
Thank you to Mike Milbury for waving that one too. So thank you, Mike. By the way, Mike scouted me years and years ago. So did Ted Nolan. Another guy, very well respected in the league. Two guys that were pretty much hated by many different people, but they loved me. Ron Wilson, the late great Ron Wilson, was another guy that scouted me when he was the Washington Capitals head coach and Team USA. So three guys that I'm not a big Milbury fan. He was a real prick. If you really want to know the truth. When I got a chance to speak to him 2 or 3 times when he was scouting me, he said some interesting things to me that I would disagree with him. But it was Mike Milbury at the time. Everybody else, I enjoyed having a conversation with. But we love you, man. We definitely would love to get you on the show again. Why don't we get you and Anthony on the show? That would be fun. I mean, you get to see me, go back and forth with Anthony. And if I could jump through a screen and sometimes want to choke him because of some of every year we've had him on the show, he would tell me, oh, the Islanders are the worst team in the Metropolitan Division. The worst team in the Metropolitan Division. I'm like, Anthony, they're not the worst team in the Metropolitan. He's like, oh, man, what do they got? I was like, yeah. I was like, I bet you they're over the Rangers. And every single year except one that we have Anthony, that the Islanders had a better record than the New York Rangers. So Anthony, I think, is just afraid to come on the show because it gives the Rangers bad juju. That's what I think. I think that's what it is. I don't think he wants to come on because it's a juju thing. But one of these days, we're going to get him on the show. And boy, we're going to have he picked Philadelphia over the Islanders.
He picked the Flyers to win the division at the start of the short year.
Yeah, I'm looking at him. I'm like, what are you smoking over there? I mean, are you hanging out with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, seriously, I love Anthony, but he makes me laugh. He really does. But his takes are definitely elevates me to be a broadcaster even more when it comes to talking to hockey. That's for sure.
Okay, Anthony hooked into football. He might start annoying you about the Jets.
That's true.
But again, all the guests annoy you about the Jets anyway.
That's true too. I mean, most people like to do that, but you know what? Hey, I being that I'm a broadcaster, just because I tell you my teams, I throw my teams under the bus just as much as anybody does on the show. So if my team sucks, they suck, and I'm going to tell you the truth. By the way, the Yankees won 5-1, and Gil pitched, what was it? Oh, he's 8-1 with a 1.82 ERA, which leads the league in ERA and second in the league in WHIP. This guy comes back from Tommy John's, and he's the best pitcher in the American League. It's crazy. But anyways, you're a fantastic, Jim. Keep up the good work. We'll get you on in the very near future.
Look forward to it. Thanks, boys.
Jim Cerny, forever Blueshirts executive editor, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really good. And he knows his Rangers. I mean, for all the Ranger fans that missed this interview, shame on you. Beav, where are you, man? What's going on with you over there? Are he's crying. I haven't heard.
It's a withdrawal, probably.
I have not heard from the Beav in about a week. It's crazy. And who reached? I think Josh asked me, have you heard from the Beav? Is he mourning? I said, he probably is. He's not talking to me, that's for sure. I mean, but he's afraid. And most Ranger fans are afraid on how I'm going to attack them. But I honestly, I'm not going to attack the Ranger fans. All right. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be a nice guy. At least I'm going to try to be nice. That's all I'm going to say about that. But
emphasis on try.
I'm going to try. All right, you fans out there, for all the fans that don't want to hear me out on that, shame on you. Anyways, Adam Schefter reports that Christian McCaffrey signed a 2-year extension with the 49ers worth about $19 million per year, which, by the way, makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history, by the way. McCaffrey had 2 years remaining on his previous contract with the Panthers worth about $14 million per year, but none of it is guaranteed. The extension will begin in 2026 season, and 24 of the $38 million will be guaranteed. McCaffrey will turn 28 years old on Friday, meaning he'll be 30 when the extension begins. McCaffrey won the Offensive Player of the Year last season with 1,459 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 564 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. In 7 NFL seasons, McCaffrey has 6,185 rushing yards and 52 touchdowns and 4,320 receiving yards and 29 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey right now is the best running back in the NFL. He is. Why he got $19 million is because the 49ers want him to know that they love him and they hope that he's going to put up the numbers he's going to put up for his second year in a row. They depend on Christian McCaffrey, in the running game. It opens up for the wide receivers. As dominant as Ayuk was this year, or Deebo Samuel when he does play, and even George Kittle, who is an all-world or tight end again this year, who I thought was the best tight end in football all season long. He really was. All around, he was as good as anybody. This team is going to run behind a guy like Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey takes over games. He's everything to the offense. And by the way, the one thing Kyle Shanahan likes to do is run the ball. If you look at Kyle Shanahan's numbers as far as the running game to offense, Kyle Shanahan, and I'm telling you, they have led or been a top 3 running game for the last 3 to 4 years. This has been as good a running game, even without Christian McCaffrey. This was the top running game as well. They've always had a good running game. Kyle Shanahan likes to run the ball. For some reason, he doesn't like to run the ball in the big game. I don't understand it. Makes no sense. But hey, that's why Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a Super Bowl under his, under his name. But again, this is a team that's going to be highly profiled, high offensive octane team that's going to run the ball, and then throw the ball. And Brock Purdy needs that running game. If Brock Purdy don't have it, he's not as efficient. If you look at Brock Purdy's numbers against good defenses and defenses that can stop the run, he's had a losing record. I think if I'm not mistaken, Brock Purdy is 1-3 against teams that have stopped the run against the 49ers.
Which aren't many.
So Brock Purdy wins the majority of his games because the running game is pretty damn good. And their offensive line with Williams, especially on that side of the ball. And Williams is getting older, so they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do on that offensive line in the very near future. So they're never a high draft pick team, so they're not going to get one of those top offensive tackles that you usually get in the top 10, top 12. So they're going to have to be a little bit more, smarter in the way they draft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, when you look at the 49ers, they're still the favorites to coming out of their division. They're still one of the favorites to coming out of the NFC this year. I want to see Brock Purdy in a second year at the top of his game, a full season, where he's going to be able to put up the numbers that he did. Teams understand how to play against Brock Purdy, and they understand how to stop the offense. You stop Christian McCaffrey, you stop the offense. It's pretty simple. Now, it's not pretty simple. It sounds simple. It sounds simple, but it's not simple, as we all know what Christian McCaffrey could do. But Christian McCaffrey over the years has been injury prone. He hasn't been injury prone for the 49ers in the 2 years he's been there, but in the majority of his career, especially with the Panthers, the guy has really played injured. So if they lose Christian McCaffrey, what are they going to do offensively? And they're paying him a lot of money. That's $19 million off their cap next year. So if he can't produce and he can't do the things that he has been doing for the last 2 seasons, it's going to be a huge problem in the future. And as far as Justin Jefferson is concerned, Another big contract, and I want to get into that as well. NFL Network reports that the Vikings have signed Justin Jefferson to a 4-year, $140 million deal. The deal includes $110 million guaranteed, $89 million guaranteed in a signing bonus. Jefferson will get $35 million per year, surpassing Nick Bosa as the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Jefferson is one of only 5 players to have 5,000 or more receiving yards in his first 4 NFL seasons. Among those, with Jefferson has 400 more receiving yards than the next highest player through a 4-year span. Jefferson is only played 10 games last season because of a hamstring strain, but still had over 1,000 yards. Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in football. Well deserved. I do believe that $35 million is a lot of money. And the reason why Kirk Cousins is no longer with the Minnesota Vikings is because they needed to pay Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins got a $100 million contract from the Atlanta Falcons, and that's why he is no longer with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to be very interested to see what the numbers are going to be with J.J. McCarthy as his quarterback this year, as a starting quarterback, or is it going to be Sam Darnold early in the season before they bring in J.J. McCarthy? There's a lot of questions there. O'Connell needs to obviously build from a rookie quarterback. He's never done that before as a head coach. He had Kirk Cousins there when he came and he took over for a Minnesota Viking team that was a veteran team. This is a team that's going to be younger now. So there's a lot of questions. And how long is it going to take for Justin Jefferson to say, you know what, I did get my contract, but I'm not going to win here. What is it going to take for you to trade me? So this is going to be something that you're going to hear in the next year or two. Now, Justin Jefferson is not outspoken like a Stephon Diggs, but Stephon Diggs, when he was drafted for his first 2 years, wasn't outspoken. It was really his 3rd and 4th year where he said, you know what, I'm better than Adam Thielen. Why am I not seeing the ball? Why am I not getting the ball? My quarterback stinks. That's why. And that's why he was traded. And he was traded for Justin Jefferson, that pick that obviously Buffalo traded away to add Stephon Diggs. And you can see the difference right now. Stephon Diggs is playing for the Texans, and Justin Jefferson is the highest paid and is the best wide receiver in football. I'm not saying Buffalo was going to draft him, but nevertheless, you could see the difference in that wide receiving class. That was one of the best wide receiving classes we've seen in a long time. That was a class that had CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, you name it. I mean, you can go on and on and on. That was a really good wide receiving class. So well-deserved. I'm going to question it because I think Minnesota is a rebuilding team. I don't think they're ready to win right now. You're taking a big chance on a guy that I'm not saying is not one of the elite wide receivers in the league. You know he is. But what is it? Usually when these guys get those bad injuries, he had a strain is a strain. When you're out for 8 games in a season and you didn't help your team move forward this season after losing Kirk Cousins, it tells me one thing. It tells me Odell Beckham was on the same path as the next Jerry Rice. And then he had that one injury. And then the next year he had the torn ACL, and he was never the same player. I want to see Justin Jefferson come back, play 17 games, 16 games this year, and put up those numbers, those big numbers, if you're going to get paid $35 million.
Yeah, it's interesting the parallel you brought up with the Bills and the Vikings with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs at the time. And I think the Vikings are kind of doing it in the mold of trying to make sure that they can get it with J.J. McCarthy. Now, J.J. McCarthy, I don't think the talent of Josh Allen, even Josh Allen as a prospect, even though a lot of people are criticizing him, we knew he had a lot of upside, a big arm. J.J. McCarthy really doesn't have a lot of those same kind of traits. But the premise of getting that number one receiver to help out your quarterback right away is going to be something that really flourishes you. You've seen the Bengals did that with Joe Burrow. They drafted T. Higgins in that aforementioned 2020 draft, that same draft as Justin Jefferson. Then they drafted Jamar Chase, and his development has been flourished because of that. Tua Tagovailoa, we're talking about it last week. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Once he got there, then his numbers started to go up. But before that, he had nothing. And same thing with Josh Allen. He was throwing to Robert Foster and John Brown his first 2 years before they got Diggs. So I think the Vikings didn't want to take that chance. I like the move for that kind of thing. As far as the 49ers with McCaffrey, I think you look at the Brock Purdy, when somebody is injured in an offense, he's not the same quarterback. You saw that when Deebo Samuel got hurt, and McCaffrey got hurt in that same game against the Browns.
He still played hurt. He still played.
I know. And they lost that first game against the Browns. They had a 3-game losing streak after that. And then they went on a hot streak to end the season. But you saw them get broken a little bit on offense when that happened. And even in the playoff game against the Packers, Christian McCaffrey was not playing 100% because he had a calf injury. He still played very well, but that offense did not show up until the second half of the game. The Packers were outplaying them throughout that game.
And that's the thing. You're taking a guess on how many years this guy has left as a top running back in the league. You're betting on him for the next 2 years after next year that he's got 3 years left, and you're giving him guaranteed money. That's a lot of money to give away to a running back that's hitting the age of 30. I mean, he's right there on the cusp of 30. That's taking a big chance, but they believe in Christian McCaffrey. They believe that he's a big part of this team. If they're going to win a Super Bowl, he's got to be a part of it. There's a lot of questions. And is Kyle Shanahan the guy that lead them to the promised land? He's failed twice against the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. Is he going to do it again, or is he going to fail again if he gets them there? I don't know if they're the favorites coming out of the NFC this year. I don't even know
guarantees. Yeah,
I don't even know if they're the favorites coming out of their division this year. So, and that's crazy to think, but hey, you know what? Anything's possible. As good as the 49ers are, they're in a division that there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of what ifs. Now, again, the NFC is not it's not a good conference,
right.
But that conference, with Minnesota's conference with the Green Bay Packers and with the Chicago Bears, I think Chicago's going to be fun to watch this year. They have a tremendous amount of offense. There's just so much that you can look at and the Lions, of course, we know
they're a powerhouse.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people would probably tell you the Lions are the favorites of coming out of the NFC this year with the talent that they added in the draft and some of the offseason moves. I don't know what's going on with Minnesota. Minnesota's rebuilding. So if I was Minnesota, and I understand what Keith is saying, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, but you could take your team back. If Justin Jefferson, if JJ McCarthy isn't the guy, okay, O'Connell's gone.
Right.
So now you have to find a new coach, and then you're going to have to find a new quarterback. Do you think that Justin Jefferson is going to stay and wait for that? The answer is no.
It has to be like a really super talent.
The answer is no. He's not going to do that. I am telling you right now, he's not. And you just gave him guaranteed money. And if he doesn't produce, he doesn't play. Odell Beckham is another guy. I think you guys remember him. He was on that trajectory. And then all of a sudden, he tears his ACL. He gets hurt. He has these hamstring problems over and over and over again. And then he tears his ACL. He's never the same player. And then they trade him. He comes back from the injury, and then they trade him. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Justin Jefferson. That's just these two signings. I like Justin Jefferson. I think he's special. But maybe you would have better if you're starting with a new young quarterback and you're a rebuilding team, and that's what I think the Minnesota Vikings are. They're a rebuilding team. I think you trade Justin Jefferson. You get back a ton of draft stock because there is nobody on that team that you're going to get more for. Justin Jefferson, you get 3 first-round draft picks for him. That's how good he is. He changes everything for your team. I think you move Justin Jefferson if you're rebuilding with a young quarterback, and you still have guys. You still have the kid that got from USC, right? He went to USC.
Yep. He also played for Pitt before that. Yep.
Right. So you have the kid from USC. You have some pieces. You have a good tight end. You rebuild that way. You have a running back, a good running back from Green Bay. So Jones. So you have pieces. And you trade Justin Jefferson away, and you stock up on draft stock and try to rebuild around the young quarterback. That's what I would have done because I don't think they're a win now team. And I think I'll tell you this: New England would have given you 3 first-round draft picks. They're looking for a wide receiver. There are other teams that are looking for top-end wide receivers. I mean, the Giants probably would have given you up 3 first-round draft picks for Justin.
The Chargers were reportedly close. They were going to trade the 5th overall pick and something else for Justin Jefferson. And I don't think they would have done 3 first-round picks, but the Vikings
2 first and a second.
Yeah, the Vikings.
2 seconds.
The Vikings, I think, were trying to do that because they really wanted Malik Neighbors, allegedly. So they were going to trade Jefferson for the 5th overall pick and a couple other picks. Was one of the rumors last week. That was interesting. So it's interesting to think what that quality would have been for that kind of haul back, and would they spend it all on wide receivers? Like you said, they still need a little more on defense too, and it's interesting to see because you saw that with the Rams when the Rams drafted Jared Goff, he had nobody to throw to.
And Carl said now that they locked him up, maybe they trade him, and that's a good point. Maybe that does happen. That's a good point. by Carl. I don't know what they feel about Justin Jefferson, but I'm going to tell you this right now. They are rebuilding. I don't care what anybody says. They have talent. They're offensive line. They have good young players. That's great. You have a rookie quarterback, and you have Sam Darnold. You're not winning with those two guys. I know J.J. McCarthy could be C.J. Stroud. Who knows? I mean, we've heard, Jim Harbaugh come out and say that he's special. But that doesn't by the way, I made the point first. LOL. I understand. Whatever it is. I don't know what you meant, Carl. Keith. Okay, you made the first point. Whatever the case, whoever made the first point. The fact is, if you sit back and you wonder, is the Minnesota Vikings going to move forward with Justin Jefferson? They probably, if you look at the team and the organization, you're probably going to say no. I don't see Justin Jefferson being a part of that organization after this year. I think they move him. And if he has a good season, he has an unbelievable season, 1,600 yards, and he could, I'd move him. I get as much as I possibly can back for him. I'd rebuild. Even the Green Bay Packers would be a team that would give away a ton of young talent to bring in a guy, Justin Jefferson's talent. So that's the way I would go if I was Minnesota. If I was a GM right now, and I'm not the Beav who wants to be the GM, but if I was, I would say, you know what? Get Justin Jefferson, show the teams that he's healthy, that he's 100% healthy this year. Let him put up his numbers no matter what. Let him get his 15 catches a game. And then you trade him and you get as much as you possibly can for him. It makes sense.
And maybe that's why they couldn't pull the trigger on that kind of thing, was because maybe teams were down on him with the injury concerns, playing only 10 games. He was playing hurt a lot even when he came back, because the Vikings were still somewhat in contention, but again, they weren't going to go anywhere with the way the Packers played in the second half of the season, all the quarterbacks they were rotating through. So maybe they didn't get that kind of value. So maybe they're thinking, all right, we'll go forward within this year, see where the rest of the division progresses. Because if J.J. McCarthy plays just as well as somebody like Jordan Love, maybe the Vikings are still there, because the Vikings defense is not that much worse than the Packers. The Packers defense still has question marks as well. The Lions are going to be the powerhouse, though, in that division.
We know they're going to be the powerhouse. You don't have to mention it and speed it up, Speedy. Anyways, Fish, your thoughts right now of this move? I'm not saying I don't like it. He deserves it. It's well deserved. This guy has been the best wide receiver in football for the last 3 years. You can't even argue that. I mean, he's fantastic. Even this year, played 10 games, 1,000 yards without Kirk Cousins. I mean, really, he did it without Kirk Cousins with a quarterback you never heard of. Okay, so it's pretty amazing. Actually, two quarterbacks that are not that very good. So, your thoughts to Jefferson getting the contract that he got?
We talked about the LSU guys that since Odell, we brought him up at the beginning of this conversation. We have all these guys. Neighbors is the new one with the Giants now. There's a big pedigree and there's a lot of production. Odell was hurt. He wasn't the same guy anymore. But for those first 3+ years, he was elite. Eli fell off some at that point. I don't think it was Eli falling off to the point that made Odell bad. I think Odell's injuries did it to him. I don't think you compare to Odell, though. I think you compare to Randy Moss. Because Randy Moss, the Vikings, also similar trajectory, that elite at the beginning of their careers. But Randy Moss then went to the Oakland Raiders, where they didn't have a quarterback, and was irrelevant for the next, to use Speedy's favorite phrase, for the next couple of years. Why would you give all this money to the shiny piece before you've taken care of the engine and foundation? It's the same argument we had with paying Saquon Barkley, Speedy. If you don't have the rest of the team, what good is spending all that money on the final piece to the puzzle when you haven't even set up the other pieces yet?
It's a good question. It is. And I'm going to tell you this. I still think Justin Jefferson's going to get that money. If it wasn't with them, it was with somebody else. Somebody is paying him. But now you give him the contract. Now you don't have to worrying about him complaining, I should get this, I should get that. Every single team after this year knows what he's going to get paid, what the guaranteed money is. So now they can say, okay, we can fit him in our cap room. We just got to trade this and this and this to get him. And he's the missing piece that could get us over the top. And there are quite a few teams that could do that. I just mentioned Green Bay. Green Bay has enough salary room right now. Now they're going to have to pay Jordan Love after this coming year, but they still have the money because of the youngsters. This is one of the youngest teams right now in the league. All these kids are still under their rookie contract. You could bring in a Justin Jefferson. He could get you over the hump. But is Minnesota going to trade in a divisional team? I don't see them doing that. But also Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, now they signed Mike Evans. Maybe Tampa Bay decides, you know what, we could trade what's his name? Godwin. Trade him and bring in a guy like Justin Jefferson to play beside Mike Evans. Now you have two elite wide receivers that can change the game for a Baker Mayfield. Also, the Browns, another team. They decided to go with Jerry Jeudy. They traded him. They gave him a 3-year deal. If Jerry Jeudy is a failure this year, you let him go. Now, the Watson move is definitely going to kill them. It's definitely going to hurt them. But there are other pieces they can move to add a guy like Justin Jefferson. There are other teams too. It's not just them. Like Baltimore Ravens, if they want to bring in a wide receiver, they're another team that needs a top end number one wide receiver. So there are teams out there looking for a guy that can change the game. And I'm going to tell you that right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are a team that could be lurking too. I mean, I don't know if they have the money.
Make the cap space.
Yeah, but they can. They can find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. They can do it. So very interesting. It's so interesting. And the Christian McCaffrey thing, I'm not surprised. They die with the run. That's what they do. Kyle Shanahan dies with the run. It's amazing how Kyle Shanahan builds his whole offense around the running game and the offensive line. And then in the playoffs, especially in the Super Bowl, in the second half of that, and I said it, he stops running the ball. It doesn't make sense. It never does. But that's the Shanahan way. Scoops, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, these moves. Do you like these moves?
With the Justin Jefferson move, so I mean,
talking to your mic, bring your mic on.
So with the Justin Jefferson move, Justin Jefferson, like you said, an amazing wide receiver. Every single year that they've had him, he's been amazingly productive for the team. But now I want to kind of carry off something that Fish said. If you're not QB ready, if you still have like certain holes to fill, I wouldn't really rush it. In a way, it's kind of like setting them up for failure. This is honestly like a question, but when has like a receiver, a veteran, a skilled receiver, when has that worked with a quarterback that's on such short notice, and on top of that,
Jerry Rice, that's it.
That's it. And look at how long ago that was. So to really have that recipe, and on top of that, they have JJ McCarthy now. JJ McCarthy, on top of that, is a rookie. They got him on short notice. They really only got him like a few months ago. And on top of that, like I said, he's a rookie. So I don't know. I just hope that they don't set themselves up for failure. And most likely what they're going to probably do is what you were mentioning. I could see other teams, now that he's locked up, I could see other teams possibly trading with him. Like you mentioned, the Chiefs, who, I mean, of course, they're doing a little bit better and they're trying to getting a better wide receiver room. But adding Justin Jefferson, I think the Chiefs will definitely jump for that. But
the Patriots are a team too. I mean, they're looking for that wide receiver. They have a young quarterback. The Patriots have a lot of money to spend in the offseason next year. I think they have, don't quote me, but probably around $70 or $80 million. They could bring in a Justin Jefferson. They have more than enough money to do that. They were trying to get Brandon Ayuk. I mean, Jeff said that if they couldn't get Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk still is going to be available next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Ayuk goes to the Patriots next year. But if they can't get Brandon Ayuk, he wants to go somewhere else, or a Higgins, or something of that magnitude. Why not bring in a Justin Jefferson? Justin Jefferson is a perfect piece to bring in with a young quarterback. And by the way, still fairly very young. He's 25 years old. He's got another probably 6 good years left, maybe even more than that, if he can stay healthy. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Minnesota does. And O'Connell, he's got a lot of pressure. He's got a big X on his head now, because if JJ McCarthy fails, and we're gonna know right away early, because usually, I know everybody says it takes 3 years, but come on, every good quarterback, every decent quarterback usually shows something in his first year. Like, wow, that was a great throw. That looked really good.
Even Trevor Lawrence.
Recently. Yeah. I mean, you look at Bryce Young. There was glimpses of greatness. I mean, this year. I mean, there were a couple of games like, wow, he made some friggin' great throws in that game. he just doesn't have weapons around him.
Decision making.
Yes, but I'm just saying he had glimpses of greatness, and people showed it. I mean, I don't know if you go on YouTube, you watch videos and stuff like that, it stands out. You could see the talent, and if you put the right pieces, you put the right coach around him, he'll succeed. Zach Wilson, you knew he was going to fail. Okay, I'm just mentioning it. He's just one of them. I mean, when you watch, and I'm bringing up players that really stood out to me. Blake Bortles, you knew he was going to fail. Okay, I'm just bringing up quarterbacks that pop into my head that I just knew they were going to fail.
Christian Ponder.
Yeah,
Remember Ponder?
Christian Hackenberg. Christian Hackenberg. I knew he was going to fail. I mean, just by the way he was throwing the ball, and when I saw him play and why I saw him practice, he didn't have it. Okay, so I mean, even Andy Dalton, as good as of a career that he had, he was more of a second tier quarterback. Right. I didn't think he was any good. They put him around a very good defense. Lewis, who's a very good coach, and they put pieces around him to succeed. They gave him weapons to succeed with, and always a good running game.
Insane amount of talent on that.
Yeah,
so that's similar to Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he only had that one good.
I thought Teddy
Bridgewater
had
that bad injury.
If Teddy Bridgewater never broke his leg the way he did, I think Teddy could have become an elite quarterback. I thought Teddy Bridgewater was a good player.
The past that afterwards, though, he was only really like a backup. Afterwards, he was that.
Well, he never really had a big arm, so I don't think any team really would give him a chance. And
he tried with
he was a gimmick.
He was Panthers.
He was more of a running, mobile gimmick quarterback. That's what he was. I mean, but he can make throws, and he was accurate. He just didn't have a very strong arm. He came from Louisville. Another quarterback that came from Louisville was very successful is Lamar Jackson. So Louisville knows how to, obviously, build quarterbacks. There's a lot of thought to where these guys are going to be in the future, and again, I don't see Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings in the next 2 years. I think he goes elsewhere. I think this is a good move for them because now teams can look at it and say, okay, we don't have to give him any more. He's the highest paid wide receiver as of right now because Jamar Chase is going to break that. I believe that, and especially if he has another good year with Joe Burrow, which I expect him to. But I think he's happy with $35 million a year and the guarantee money that he's getting. So I think there will be teams out there that'll be willing to trade pieces away to land him. So I think it's very, very interesting. Another story before we go, which we never got into, and I wanted to get into it last. Pro Football Hall of Famer Larry Allen passed away suddenly at the age of 52 while on vacation with his family in Mexico. Allen was a member of the All-Decade Team, 1990 from 2000s, and was an 11-time Pro Bowl player and a 6-time first-team All-Pro player. Allen played with the Cowboys from 1994 to 2005 and was on their the last of their 3 Super Bowl teams in the 90s. Allen was inducted into the first as a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2013. Allen was tied for 5th most Pro Bowls and 7th most All-Pro appearances among offensive linemen. The cause of death remains unknown. Obviously, Allen was a heavy guy. He was a big man. Sounds like a heart attack. That's what would come to me. I haven't heard anything with the drug overdose. Nobody found anything when it came to drugs. Obviously, they're going to do an autopsy. The family, I don't know if they're going to reveal on what he died from, unless it was from all natural causes. What you died from 52 years old. Something must have went on him. With a guy this big and this tall, this strong, I don't know if he ever did steroids. I mean, obviously, there has been a lot said over the 90s and in the early 2000s that a lot of these guys were doing steroids and doing human growth hormones. I'm not saying Larry Allen was doing that, but he was a pretty big man. To me, one of the elite offensive linemen we'll ever see. I mean, this guy was as good as anybody. When we talk about Smith and what he did with the Cowboys over the last couple of years of a 10-year span, Smith is an first ballot Hall of Fame. He's not anywhere close to Larry Allen. I think Larry Allen, amongst the when you see what Williams has done in his career with the San Francisco, you can compare Williams to a Larry Allen. He was a dominant force. He was a guard. Now Williams is a tackle. This guy was a guard. But Larry Allen didn't just play right guard or left guard. He played multiple positions when need be, and he was everything to that offensive line. He was the anchor to that offensive line and that success. He will be missed, obviously. May he rest in peace. And one of the fantastic personalities off the field as well. I don't know if anybody's heard his interviews. I've never met Larry Allen, but I know people that have and said that the guy was very, very funny, very, very energetic, and he was one of the faces and one of the captains of those great Cowboy teams with Deion Sanders and Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman. People forget what Larry Allen stood for, and to me was really what you want your guards to be: big, strong, rough, tough, and funny. And that's what he was.
Yeah, one of the biggest personalities. A lot of the Cowboys offensive players said that too. Aikman said it. Jay Novacek at tight end said Larry Allen was that guy. He was the anchor of it when it came to a locker room standpoint as well. Just you get that offensive alignment sometimes, but you always get it with somebody like Larry Allen. That's a passion. And you were mentioning the guard skills too. Like he moved around so well for a guard. So you don't see that very often with a lot of interior.
They moved him when there were injuries at their right tackle position. He played tackle a little bit in the playoffs when they had some injuries. When they needed him to move, he moved. The only position I think he never played was center.
Right.
I mean, they moved him all over that line, and that's how good Larry Allen. He was so athletic, and they even moved him in the offense sometimes. So he was doing other things like running the ball and doing things in the offensive side of the ball too. So when we remember the Fridge and what the Fridge did as a defensive player, Larry Allen was just so athletic, so talented, so gifted as a player, and like I said. There's not many guys you can compare him to, and a guy that when you look at him, Orlando Pace is another guy. He was a tackle, but he could play multiple positions too. Very gifted athlete, big, strong, and could do things. And Fish, you were an offensive tackle. You watched Larry Allen play. What was your thoughts to Larry Allen? What made Larry Allen so special?
Let me explain it to you this way. Remember the movie Friday with Debo?
Yes.
In Friday. Well, he made Debo look like Mickey Mouse. This guy was they said he would bench over 800 to 900 pounds. When you watch him at around 6, I think he was around 6'5", 340, something like that, playing weight, was fast as a cat, probably the best run blocker, maybe of all time, of any offensive line position. He was that good. I mean, we had some clips of him pulling on counter tray. We had some power stuff. Anything he did where he had to kick you out. What are you going to do to stop that freight train? He was unstoppable. Everyone, including all the greats, where no one would mess with Reggie. Reggie White couldn't deal with him famously. He was too strong for the greats. And when you have something like that, even guys like Dion, even guys like Michael Irvin, they all respected him. And it probably held that team together to have a guy like that where it was like, that's just the big boss. That's the guy. Like they have him.
Let me tell you something. Emmitt Smith wouldn't be Emmitt Smith without Larry Allen. Okay.
No way. Remember how much John Madden loved him too?
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, I remember how many offensive linemen in the 90s did you really know? I mean, growing up, like Larry Allen was one of the maybe 2 or 3. He was that guy because Madden would talk about him all the time. He would just giggle at how good he was. And when you got John Madden being a fanboy for you, that's a pretty good thing.
Something for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And Madden did mention him a lot. He definitely did. And there were other good running. I mean, Anthony Munoz, another guy that I think Munoz was the greatest tackle to ever play the game. I really think that he stood out for, at the tackle position, but Madden loved him too. So, and John Madden, may he rest in peace as well. It's sad. 52 years old, didn't even really have a second part of his life. He's only 10 years older than me. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but he's 10 years older than me. When I was born, he was 10, so It's crazy. It's crazy, and that shows you how short life is, and you don't realize when your time is going to come, and that's why you enjoy your life. And I'm sure he enjoyed his life, but when you're going on a vacation and you're found dead, I mean, that's a horrible thing to do when you're out with your family. And I feel bad, and may he rest in peace. I'm going to say this: Allen was a special player, and and if you're a Cowboy fan, he stood for something. He stood for the emblem for the Cowboy star, and he stood for what they say is America's fan and America's people, whatever the hell they say about America's pastime team, whatever the hell they call them. But one of the main reasons why the Cowboys were so dominant was because of that offensive line. It's one of the greatest offensive lines in history, and one of the main reasons why, Larry Allen. So may he rest in peace. One more story before we go. Keith sent me this. LeBron James proud of Kyrie Irving, but misses former partnership. And I'm not going to read this story because I could just I could just see what LeBron James is trying to do here. Okay. LeBron is a free agent this year. Now, he can go anywhere he wants. Now, I do not believe he's going to Dallas, and that would be pretty funny if he did. But I don't see him going to Dallas. But it's funny when he brings up a guy like Kyrie Irving. When Kyrie Irving has come out and said that LeBron James is the greatest leader he's ever played with. Kyrie Irving came out and said that when things were trending in the awkward ways in Cleveland, LeBron was always the one that kept him straight, always kept him forward, moving forward. And one of the reasons why I think Kyrie Irving has developed into one of those closers is playing with a guy like LeBron James, because LeBron James expected him to be a closer because he knew that he was going to be double and triple teamed all the time when he was going to the hole. Kyrie Irving is a special player. I don't care what anybody says. He's the dumbest person you'll ever meet. But as far as talent goes, I don't care what anybody says. If this man just shut his mouth and play the game, and I said this to you, Speedy, on air and off air, this guy, talent-wise, everybody keeps saying we just spoke to Tim Alcorn, and he says that Steph Curry is the greatest two he's ever, of all time, which I kind of, he rebuted that because Michael Jordan is. But Kyrie Irving, to me, is a better player than Steph Curry. He's a better all-around player than Steph Curry. And to me, if the man just goes out there and plays the game and does what he does best, and that's just he could shoot the ball, he can go to the hole, he can ball handle, he can even defend. I've seen this guy. He can defend any of the guard positions. If he just plays his game as we've seen with the Mavericks, and he feels more at home than he said he's ever felt with any other team, I think this guy could win multiple championships, and not with LeBron James. I think he can win with Luka Doncic. I think this team could win 2 of the next 3 championships. He's that good. He's that special. I just think he uses his platform to get himself into trouble. And LeBron James coming out and saying that, LeBron James just wants to make news, okay? I've been saying this over and over again. Him saying that he's going to retire after Denver, eliminates him in four games last year and takes away the spotlight away from, the Joker and Murray and the way they played, and Porter, how they dominated against the Lakers. I think he's taking the story away from what Dallas is doing right now, what Kyrie Irving is doing right now. And maybe putting it in people's heads, maybe LeBron wants to go and play in Dallas. Maybe Dallas drafts his son Bronny, and then you have Bronny, LeBron, Kyrie, and Luka moving forward. I don't know what he's trying to do here. I think Kyrie could be something more special than he has been over the last couple of years. I just think that he just needs to shut his mouth and play the game. He is special, and I agree with LeBron. This guy is a closer. He's as good a closer as anybody we've seen in the NBA in the last 10 years. He's that good. He can close out. You heard Tim Alcorn. He was there when Kyrie Irving was the closer for Game 7 when they knocked off Golden State. He was the reason why they won that game. Well, him and LeBron were. Right. I expect Kyrie Irving to be a closer in this series. I think he's going to be. They're going to use him as a decoy, or they're going to use him in the pick and roll. That's going to give him open shots and it could dominate. Because by the way, the Celtics are they're not a very good team on the perimeter and defending that 3-point shot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. They have two really good defenders, White and Drew Holiday. We'll see how Kyrie Irving handles both those guys. I think he's going to be able to handle them pretty well, and he's going to love handling those Boston fans. Expect it on Boston. Expect him scoring 30 to 35 points against Boston in Boston on Thursday night.
It's interesting because the Brad Stevens system did a good job shutting him down. We'll see what this with Missoula now, if they're going to be able to do the same. And Marcus Smart, same kind of thing, not being there now with the Grizzlies. So it'll be interesting to see. And like you said, Kyrie Irving, will he let it get in his own head or not? It's another question. But we were talking about it too. Like LeBron was the only one that was able to stabilize Kyrie and all his moronic comments that he said. Finally, they have another one now, Luka Doncic.
Those Boston fans, man, they forgive and forget, don't they, Errol? They're just they're not gonna worry about the fact that he forced his way out after they sacrificed, a lot of their prospects for him and then set them back a couple of years. They're gonna forget all about that. It's gonna be just, very amicable there in the finals.
Yeah, I will say this: the Boston Celtics. This is not going to be an easy series, and for all the Boston fans, you better slow down, slow your roll, and don't boo him too loud, because this guy plays better when you're booing him. This guy plays better when he's emotional. Do not get him emotional, because if he gets emotional, this guy could score 40 on you. This guy could score 45. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores 40 in his first game on Thursday night in Boston. I expect Luka to give him the ball. I expect Luka to give him the ball and let Kyrie take over that game. And I expect Kyrie to be a big factor if they to win the NBA championship. And by the way, if Dallas wins the NBA championship, Kyrie Irving is the MVP. That's my prediction.
Redemption series.
That's my prediction. I think Luka is going to give Kyrie the ball and let Kyrie take over that series. I think there's nobody on that team that could defend him. I'm sorry. Even Jaylen Brown. I see Keith saying Jaylen Brown's a good defender. Can he keep up with Kyrie Irving? And by the way, Kyrie knows how good Jaylen Brown is because he played with him for a couple of years. He knows how he defends. He knows how he plays the game. If anybody has an advantage, it's Kyrie Irving. Offense in basketball, a good offense always beats a good defense, and that's different. It's different than it was in the 90s, and that's why Adam Silver wants to change the rules, because he wants to make defense a little bit more important in the NBA as offense has really taken over the last couple of years. So it's very interesting. How about you, Scoops?
So I had seen the thing that LeBron had said on Twitter, like before the show had started and everything. Honestly, I just thought it was kind of weird. He's honestly doing that only because it fits the agenda, of course. He knows that Kyrie going to the finals, win or lose, if they end up teaming up afterwards, they'll look like $1 million. Any organization, any GM, any fan, they'll think, I'm gonna steal one of your lines fit.
Can
They'll
they
think
fit him in the cap?
Not two.
Speedy, could they fit him in the cap?
I think they probably would have to shed some of the trade deadline pieces, but I think if they do some of that, probably.
I think they could fit him in the cap. I don't think he could take $60 million.
No,
he would have to take.
He'd take less to play with Kyrie. I think
he takes $40 million. I think he could play with him, and Dallas would draft Bronny. I know Dallas would draft Bronny.
Wherever LeBron goes, whatever team LeBron goes, it would definitely be, of course.
Why not? I mean, they can win multiple championships over there with Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is by far the best player on that roster. There's no question that he is. I mean, LeBron is going to have to take a back seat, just like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh had to take a back seat. I could see the same as well. But finish up what you were saying, Scoops.
No. Just that was just exactly like I said. Whoever, if they end up teaming up together, right, win or lose for Kyrie in the finals, whatever fan, whatever executive, they'll all think that, oh my God, we have LeBron and Kyrie back together, and now with the trifecta of Luka Doncic, I think anybody will think that they'll win $1 million, that they'll win, a bunch of multiple rings there. But I don't know. I just personally think it's a little weird.
I don't think it's weird. It's LeBron James. It's Kyrie Irving. Two weirdos. I mean, those two guys are as weird as they get when it comes to the NBA. And conversations about the NBA is just You don't know what's going to happen this offseason. There are quite a few players that want out. The whole Donovan Mitchell thing. I don't care what Timmy says. I don't care what he says. One of those guys are going. Garland or Donovan Mitchell will be gone sometime this summer. There's no way both those guys are going to be there. Garland, there was no secret why Garland did that. They could be sitting and hanging out. Everybody knows if Donovan Mitchell's there, it's his team. And Garland wants to go somewhere where it's his team. I mean, there are quite a few teams that could use a good point guard. I can tell you that. Orlando's one of them. Orlando has a bunch of youngsters, but they're not going to get over the hump with the talent that they have over there. They bring in a guy like Garland over there to play with some of the young players that they have over there. I mean, Orlando made the playoffs this year. I think they can make a run. So there's other teams that could use a good point guard as well. So interesting. I mean, I think the Lakers need to start moving pieces. Anthony Davis could be on his way out. We've heard the Pelicans are looking to move somebody, maybe one or two guys. I don't think Williamson is going to be moved, but
Ingram
could be one.
Ingram is going to be moved, yeah.
He's a guy that a lot of people think could be a star in this league. I mean, the Knicks should definitely look at Ingram.
Yeah.
I think if you can't get Karl Anthony Towns, why not bring Ingram in? Brendan Ingram, you match him up with Jalen Brunson. You need a big man that has athletic ability that can do a lot of things and can shoot the three. Brendan Ingram's that kind of guy. I think he'd be a great fit with the Knicks.
It's good for both of them.
It's good for both of us, right? For both of us. You finger up your ass.
2 for 2 tonight, Scoops.
Speedy, is it good for both of us if you stick a finger in your ass?
Scoops, don't play the sound. You'll break your perfection streak.
That's true. I mean,
I want you to slide it right in.
I would slide it right in.
That one was a little more applicable.
Oh,
What we were talking about.
would you slide it right in for me, Speedy? No. Okay. I'm just asking you. It's good for me.
I can tell.
Enjoy.
What was that?
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Screaming.
Enjoy. You like the gobbling goober?
It's smothering.
Smother. Oh, I like that picture. There we are. Who am I over there? I got to be the ugly one. Look at Speedy in the middle.
I like that Speedy's thinking of the sausage.
He is. He's thinking about sausages. Which one?
Wait, Fish. What's the one in the corner with the teal Islanders jacket?
That's Milbury in the ugliest outfit ever.
Oh, it's terrible.
In an Islanders starter jacket.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, that is an interesting picture.
Mike Milbury helping out the Bruins for 50 years, winning championships with them as a player, then giving them Zdeno Chara from the Islanders.
You know, Speedy, I have a question for you. If you were to be a movie star and there was a movie that you could pick to star in, what would it be? Come on, there's got to be a movie that really stands out to you. Beethoven?
You mean the one with the dog?
Yeah.
I see where you're going with that. Nice try.
At least he saw it. Sure we're going.
Maybe it'll be Patches and Dodgeball. I'll throw the wrenches at everybody.
Patches and Houlihan?
Oh yeah.
You?
I'll throw the wrenches at all of them.
You in a wheelchair?
Sure, why not?
I like that one. That was a good pick.
I don't know if that would be a good pick.
I'll throw the wrenches at everybody. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I don't keep remembering them 5 Ds.
How about Roger Rabbit? I think you'd be good. I mean, his girlfriend has big boobs. Your mom's got big boobs. I mean, it's perfect.
Which just doesn't correlate. One's an animation. The other one is a human.
The Godfather.
Boy.
No, I'd probably be dead in that.
Okay, if there was a team that you could play quarterback for, who would it be? Quick.
A team I could play quarterback
Quick.
Because being I would suck, I'll sabotage the Commanders.
Don't share a Wu-Tang pie with the Rock.
Yeah, the Rock might become the next owner at this rate. That's probably more likely the Dolphins.
That's true too.
I'm not surprised if he runs for president.
No, that's true. I mean, maybe you hang out with the Rock and Rock has a bunch of big dogs. Maybe they can lick your ass.
I'd probably do a lot more than that. Right. Another reason to be dead in addition to him.
Oh, Speedy. Could you imagine you Darth Vader?
No. Give us a Darth Vader impression. Just a little bit. Say, okay, wait. Say, Luke, I am your sausage. You gotta say it just like that.
Fine.
Luke, I am your sausage. Luke, I want your sausage. That one. Do that one. Do that one. Luke, I want your sausage.
Probably didn't exist on that planet, but okay.
Oh man, Speedy Pete. He is 1 in a million. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely the dark side of the force over there.
You know,
Definitely.
or you could be Pink Floyd, the dark side of the moon. Or you can see the rear end on the other side.
And of course you went there.
What was that?
You gotta hear this already.
The hell is ass cheeks?
Well, you know what? Well, yeah. Could you give us a nursery rhyme? You don't have any nursery rhymes before we go? I've got one for you.
All right, go ahead.
Hickory dickory dock.
All right, I know where you're going with that. And I don't want to hear it.
Well, maybe somebody else does. Mom, are you listening?
No, Mom would not want to hear that either.
Anyways, thank you to all the fans for tuning in. Thank you to Tim Alcorn, the Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster, for joining us. Thank you from Forever Blue Shirts, executive editor Jim Cerny, for joining us for the first time. Thank you to him. Thank you for Anthony Scoltari for hooking us up with him. And Speedy, he wants to be hooked up with you. Is that okay with you? No, you don't want to be hooked up with Anthony Scoltari?
No.
Why? What's wrong with Scoltari?
I'm not getting involved romantically in any of our guests.
But what about Anthony? You thought he was sexy.
That's fine. I'm not getting involved.
But you thought he was
intimately
sexy. Did you
with
not?
any of our guests.
Did he not look sexy to you?
That's fine. That doesn't make a difference.
I mean, what do you like about Anthony? What do you like? About Is it his voice? Is it his eyes?
Yes.
Yes, his voice, right?
Yes.
Does he have that sexy voice that if he was in the bedroom with you, he'd just arouse you?
No.
You sure? I mean, you like
They
his
don't
voice.
correlate.
What do you mean they don't correlate? If he's in a room, he's like,
I don't care.
come over here. Let me show you my stick. What do you think?
That would be weird.
What? He's going to show you his stick.
Okay. I believe.
All he wants you to do
Thank
is
you.
sign it. That's all he wants you to do. He wants
That's
you to
weird.
sign it. What? Sign his stick?
Yes.
Why? What's wrong with you signing?
I'm
his
not
stick?
writing on somebody's body.
99% of the world would too.
That one fits so well.
Anyways, thank you to all the fans. Thank you very much. We'll be back on Thursday. No show on Wednesday, so we're doing it every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Speedy, who do we have on as a guest?
All right, 8 o'clock, we will have a new guy, fan-sided content creator, Josh Hill. He's predominantly NBA, but does a lot of other things as well. Big Minnesota Timberwolves fan as well. Very happy with their season, even though they lost in the Western Conference Finals. So he'll be on at 8, and then returning the show. It's been a while since he's been on at 8:30. Lake McCree, USC tight end, we had on years ago, and I believe before his freshman year at USC. He had a pretty decent season for them, almost 300 yards and a touchdown for them last year. In an offense, not really a tight end-centric offense with Lincoln Riley. We got to play with Caleb Williams.
Might be this coming year.
Yep, and we had him on. I believe he was a big Laker fan as well. You had some basketball discussions with him, I believe.
Yeah, and he'll be a draft pick next year.
Yep.
So that'll be fun, and we actually like him. He's a funny kid. He's good. He likes to laugh, so he does like to laugh. So you guys will enjoy the interview. So it'll definitely be fun. Again, we'll be back on Thursday. By the way, we'll have some new content out there. And guys, check us out. Go to Spotify, go to Apple, The Sports Loudmouth. What are you doing, Tommy?
I'm getting my last, like, the end of the show grooves, you know? Like
There's no music on.
I know. Music in my head. There's always.
Speedy, do you have anything in your head? What are you thinking about right now?
I'm thinking about
Anthony Scoltari's.
I'm thinking about moving everything around to end the show.
Okay, wait a second. What are you interested in eating right after the show? Right now?
I don't know.
What do you? Banana, right?
I don't have a banana.
You don't have a banana? Everybody's got a banana.
In their house, everybody has a banana.
Everybody's got a banana.
All right. Every household in the world.
No, but you
has
have a banana, right? You have to have a banana. Have you ever peeled your banana?
Yes, everyone peels a banana except for
No,
people
have
that
you
actually
ever
eat the
peeled your banana?
I don't have a banana.
Everybody's got a banana.
I don't have a banana.
Do you peel your banana or not?
No, because I don't have one.
Every guy has a banana.
No, they don't.
You gonna tell me they weren't born with a banana?
No.
You weren't born with a banana.
No. Nobody's born with fruit attached to them.
Every guy is born with a banana. It either bends to the right or bends to the left. Which one would you? Which side does it bend to yours?
I don't know because I don't have a banana.
All right, so you're pretty much telling us that you don't hold a banana.
I don't have a banana attached to my body.
Well, that's not true. You do.
No, I don't.
Well, it's hidden. It's in a bush. Okay.
Bananas grow from trees, not bushes.
Well,
let's go burn a bush in a crab.
Anyways, we'll be back on Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, this is Zero Mark, Speedy Petey, Mr. Fish, our executive producer, and Mr. Scoops saying goodnight. We'll talk to you then. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.